Hello, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. Happy Friday. This is episode number 122. And I've got a stand-in co-host for the evening. Hello, Kellen. He's familiar to these parts. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Happy to be here. Filling in for some big shoes with Alan being gone, but it's a pleasure to be here as always.
Yep, you got some shoes to fill, but you'll do just fine. You can hold your own just fine, of course. And what's been going on? Good week?
Had a good week. Excited to get into this topic here. When Marty broached the topic of going through a nostalgia trip, it brought out part of my record collection that I haven't touched in a while. So it's going to be a good time tonight. We have an amazing guest as always.
Absolutely. Before we bring him on, I just want to, if you're new to the channel, there's been a lot of new people here the last month or so. Welcome. Cheers. Thanks for joining the fold, and feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat because we have a very cool community here. And go check out Kellen's channel, Killing for Company. Links in the description. Let's get this guy's count up. Inspire him to start shooting more videos more often. I know summer's busy for him, but I know, and we also commandeer him quite often over here on Heavy Metallurgy because we love him. But it's good. It's good to encourage the guy to shoot some stuff on his own as well. But yes, hello, cheers. Hey Tim. Hey Phil. It's good to see everybody. Hey Mike. Hey Wade. Labor Day weekend. Oh yeah. But cool. It's one other thing. We have merch available still. Eventually I'm going to be setting up Heavy Metallurgy's own merch store, the merch dungeon. It's going to be its own thing, separate from Binary Recordings. It's just been one of those things where I started it and I lost all enthusiasm. This has been a very lazy week. So that's just the way it goes, but that's coming, but it's still available on the Binary channel. The link's in the description if you want to buy yourself a new shirt. But without further ado, let's bring in our friend from the East, depending on which way you're going to go. But Jurgen returns. Panzer Division Jurgen is back from Germany, from Bavaria. Cheers, brother. Good to see you. Thank you for filling in.
Look at that.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
It's good to have you back, sir. I hope you've been doing well. What's been going on over at 6 Beers, 9 Wives? The channel. Links in the description.
Not that much at the moment because it's summertime and I'm spending a lot of time outside. So right, I'll be back when the weather is getting even worse than it is now.
It's coming. Yep. The fall is starting to coming. We've had cooler weather and now it's getting hot again. So it just doesn't. Hey, all the way from Australia. What's up, Simon? Everybody say hi to Simon. Good to see you, man.
How's it going, Simon?
I've seen a lot of alarming videos from Australia this week. The brainworm thing and a ginormous snake going from somebody's roof into a tree. It was all in Australia. So it takes a tougher bunch to live down there. Not for me. I won't even visit. Sorry, Simon. We'll have to meet halfway. Let's meet in Bavaria and try to drink Jurgen under the table. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You gotta bring up a lot of people to drink me under the table, I guess.
No, you're gonna. If you could drink a tankard under the table, I know we're not even gonna put a dent in it. So,
you know, when you go on the highway here on the Autobahn, there's a huge sign right beside my exit that says "Beer Region." It really does. I'm not lying to you.
Perfect.
It's about not even a mile from here. A big sign on the Autobahn.
Wow. Perfect.
Grüße nach Nürnberg. Danke. So, okay.
Yeah.
I have to say something. You made the wrong thumbnail because I decided we're gonna do the Saxon ranking again because we live to rock. So this might take a while. Let's start with
we rocked through that in 3 hours. So you gotta give us props for that. And
I'm just kidding.
I probably would have less to contribute than the previous on that one.
So now we're back.
Well, speaking of shows that we've done in the past, we were talking in the bullpen before this. We may have done something similar to this show in the past with Chromie and some other folk, but we figured it was a good topic. Nostalgia is something that affects everybody, whether it's, like I said in the intro, whether it's music or smells or places or a car. I mean, something as simple as a make of car that takes you back to your youth, or music is certainly a big catalyst in like a Wayback Machine. Like, there's records here that I'm going to show that I put on, and it takes me back to a time and a place, a house, people, memories, old family that are no longer with us. It's a heavy thing, and I think it affects everybody, probably in the same ways it does me. And I feel that it's cool because Jurgen, him and I are about the same age, so we might be, although there's cultural differences, obviously, but in Kellen, he's a bit younger than us, so it's going to be interesting to hear the stories and see what music is shown tonight. And again, thank you guys for joining me. Without having Alan here, I think we can handle it. We can do this. I'm scared. I'm a little scared. In fact, I'm not going to be here next Friday, so Alan's going to be doing this with somebody else too. So there's going to be a couple weeks of transition here for us all, but it'll be fine. But so yeah, let's talk about nostalgia. How do we want to set this up? Let's start with Kellen. Is it mostly music that takes you back, or are there other things in your life? I mean, what is a good trigger for you that really kicks back the feels in time?
I mean, music is the first thing for me, but I would say that what's happening while I'm listening to these records, and some of the stuff I pulled tonight. Yeah, the sound is immediate, but just it's also flooded with everything else that was going on in my life. So I think when we first wanted to talk about nostalgia, I thought, like, it's going to be a record, and then it's going to be all the other things that's going on in our lives at the time that we're listening to it. They're just memories, people that I haven't talked to in a long time. A lot of the music is wrapped up in friendships, relationships, different places that I was living at the time. There's enough of that sort of transcends my relationship with just a singular record that I think makes them so personal to us. So I will get a chance to sort of unpack that. I think what's interesting, though, Jurgen jokingly brought up the thumbnail, but at the time that I think, we can talk about age a little bit in terms of when you first started to approach this music, but I know your relationship with Kiss, for example, Marty. Like, I was trying to think of when I'm your age, when you're getting into Kiss, like in the 90s, when I'm, in elementary school, getting ready for middle school, like, who's the Kiss of my generation?
That's
right?
tough.
Right. And so when I was looking at all the different albums that you had listed and the things that I'm sure both you and Jurgen are going to share, it's going to be a little bit different just because of that transition. So while I think heavy metal and my relationship to it this young in my life is going to be impacted, we're kind of on the heels of last week's 1990 conversation, right? Yep. Which I think is an interesting segue into, for me at least, what metal means in 1995, 1996, 1997. And
I expected to get a lot of punk out of you too. I know you come from the punk era, so I anticipated a lot of punk out of you.
You are 2 steps ahead of me. There's going to be a whole lot of that, because there sure as shit wasn't a lot of metal. But yeah, for sure, that'll be up on this. But it'd also be a point of conversation, like when I get into pulling out these records, was just kind of where my head was at and what I thought about metal at the time. So it's a great conversation.
What about you, Jurgen? What do you think about this whole subject?
I think nostalgia is not really pointed at our youth. Nostalgia can be an event that is only 5 or 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a lot of newer stuff that I've got a lot of memories. So I think I'm gonna do this a little bit. What is it called? In chronological order. So with my first one, I'm gonna start when it started for me. I've got a question for Kellen. What is the year you were born, if I dare to ask?
Sure. So at the end of '84, November of '84.
84. Okay. So you were about 3 years old when Marty and I started. Marty may have started even before you were born.
With metal, I started with Kiss 77 or 78.
Okay.
And I was 77. I was 6.
My father had yet to meet my mother, so yeah. But yeah, I'll be. We'll get into it later. Yeah, but that's just to give you some sort of idea of where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not that far behind you, Jeff. There was electric guitars. There was. Oh, everybody, go check out Gas Mask and Hand Grenades. Jeff last night did a cool interview with one of the dudes from Tyrant. They went through the whole the development rise of that band. So go check that out for sure. Well, why don't we just start with you, Jurgen? You're up. You're our guest for the night. Why don't you get this ball rolling?
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. On my 11th birthday, I have told that before. I've got a little compact stereo player. It had no CD player. So back in 1986, there were no CD players available. It just got a radio, a tape deck, and a record player.
Yep.
And I've got a little bit of spare money, and that was my entry point. So the Iron Maiden debut. I listened to a little bit of Led Zeppelin before, but not that much. I was not too interested in music, but I saw that cover. I got the record player, so I bought that one with the money from my grandmother. And that is where it all started. And as you can see, it's got the Kiss tour sticker.
Ah, right.
So
they toured with Kiss in Europe with Paul Di'Anno. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that wasn't until later with Dickinson. Right on.
Yeah, they played their very first show in Germany was here in Nuremberg.
So you're what, 2 years younger than me? You're 50?
No, I'm 48.
48. So you kind of missed Kiss. You went into Maiden. You went way cooler than Kiss. Right on.
Yeah, Kiss was not that big thing here in Germany, or dare I say in Europe, than it was in America.
Right.
So all the merchandising thing that didn't work as well here as it did in the US.
Yeah, I remember my mom buying me Kiss shirts, iron-on Kiss shirts out of the JCPenney catalogs. That's how merch, early on for that band, it was a thing. Definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just follow up on that one, Jurgen? So by 1980, because obviously in terms of like the iron-on shirts, the merchandising, the whole like presentation, did at least Maiden have that kind of visibility and access to you at that age? Like, or were they considered that much of a pop culture phenomena at that time period?
They were pretty underground, not that mainstreamy as Kiss was in America.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden, even back when I got into them in 1986, you could see their stuff in magazines, or we had order forms, stuff like that, but not in the mainstream media. Nowhere to be found.
Right.
Not on TV. Maiden never got played on the radio here in Germany.
It really wasn't until Number of the Beast is when they started to kind of break.
Right. Like that was pretty intense for 1980, right? In terms of sound, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kellen, let's get you going here.
Okay, so for me, I didn't at this point, like when I'm in, 11 years old or so. I just had a radio, and I had like one of those dual CD with the would come on the top, and then whatever you put in the regular sort of speaker. And I listened to the radio at the time, but obviously didn't have tons of income. So once I started to save my allowance and cared enough about music, I started to purchase stuff for myself. And there was like metal at the time for me was just completely untouchable. Like there was no context. It wasn't played in the home. My parents weren't into it at all. I didn't have any peers who were into it. And there were just no like pop culture icons that I personally gravitated towards. Like the biggest bands, sure, Metallica was going on, but what I was thinking about during the course of this stream was like, when you're 10 years old in a band that has been around for how many albums by 1995? Like 6 albums or so?
Yeah.
That seemed old to me. I remember watching the Behind the Music VH1 and feeling like, man, this is a band that came out in the early 80s. Like that's a long time ago. Like that was my sort of impression of the band and the genre. So for me, what was on the radio, and probably was my first inroads into heavy music, was coming from a particular part of the country and had a very particular part of the kind of sound. So here, I don't know how I've held on to these CDs over the years, but this is No Effects and Goldfinger. So, I mean, these records take me back to, I rarely touch them anymore. And a couple, we were doing nostalgia. My parents were going through my old bedroom and found like a bunch of CDs that had just survived 3 decades of my life, whatever. And we're like, are you still interested in these? And for me, like nostalgia, do I really want to listen to these that often? No. But the thought of me losing this time period in my life, I don't want to lose touch with that, right? Like it still means something to me. So it has personal value. And this sounds super 90s.
Sure.
I think now when I think about like this sound, it's pop music. But to me, it was like something that was different than what you were getting on the vast majority of the radio. So, obviously like Green Day's Dookie came out in 94. Like that was all over the radio.
I love that record. It's the only Green Day album I own. I like that record. It's
do
good.
you really need more?
Nah.
Yeah. No. But like that 90s California punk sound that was all over the place, that like defined so much of my early childhood. So I think more than any single one record, I think when I go back to being very young, that's the sound that I think of.
And I think it's also important to note that Kellen grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Am I wrong there?
Yeah. So I was on the West Coast. I'm an Oregonian. So
yep, right on.
I still like to pull out the old Bad Religion stuff and the really old NoFX. I still got the records, so
yeah, sure.
That was also part of my youth when Bad Religion came up with No Control. I was sold, and I still am.
Yeah, like I remember going to shows and being very young and kind of scared of the NoFX fans. I was like 11, right? But for me, it seemed pretty serious at the time. So, yeah, it's just weird to think about that.
And pretty stinky and pretty crusty.
Sure. Yeah, my parents definitely did not want that for my future. So.
Hey, Patrick, what's up? All right. For me, I've shown this before. We've had this discussion a million times, but this is probably one of the first albums. My grandmother bought this for me, and get a little misty right in the intro for this because I was thinking about her a bit. Every time I put this on, I think of her. I think about playing rummy with her. Back in the 70s, my parents still have theirs. It's the record players were like pieces of furniture. It was like a giant wood table where the lid opened up. There were speakers built in on each end. The middle lid opened up. It had a turntable or radio, maybe an 8-track player in there. And we sat and listened to this record over and over, playing Rummy and, you know, Monopoly or whatever other games we play. She liked card games, so Go Fish and shit like that. But, you know, there's some swearing on here, and how many of y'all like the taste of alcohol? And, you know, she didn't say shit about it. And I was what, 7 or 8 when this came out. She was just psyched that I was so into it. And apparently I saw Kiss on TV, and my dad said I wouldn't stop talking about it, and much to their chagrin, it stuck. And if it wasn't, I mean, one thing about it, this whole era just gets me thinking back about my youth, which I don't think about very often, to be honest. And you know, I had a babysitter that was friends of the family, actually, a cousin. She was kind of a hippie. I'd go over to her place and she'd watch me for the day, and she'd have the radio on singing along, and I just remember watching her and listening to her sing in harmonies and melodies, and, you know, 70s popular radio. It was a wide swath of very melodious stuff. And, you know, my dad was a country guy, you know, truck driving songs, Willie Whalen, you know, the old school country stuff. My mom liked, you know, I mean, I listened to the radio in the car. There wasn't tape decks. You just had a radio in the car and singing along with ABBA and all these 70s bands. And I could sing. I used to be able to sing. I was in choir for a while, and, you know, years of trying to sing death metal vocals and shit ruined all that for me. But, you know, Kiss hit at the right time for me. They look like superheroes, you know? So I saw them first, and it was the music later. And I just feel very fortunate that my family never discouraged what I listened to. You know, I had friends that her parents were throwing Kiss records away because they were evil, or, I mean, there's some pretty raunchy, gross lyrics on this stuff, you know. There just is, you know. I don't know. It's just, I just feel very fortunate that it was encouraged instead of discouraged, because it might have been worse. But yeah, I mean, Destroyer, Love Gun. I mean, I have very fond memories of all these records. Kiss, the first album, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, all of it. It's just all so ingrained. And I've listened to these albums. This is the original record. I mean, I've got all of my Kiss records, are ones I've had since I was a kid. I know every pop and fart on this thing, every skip. And they say records degrade really quickly. Every time you put a record on, it degrades. Man, I had one of those record players, like a portable record player, where it pulled down in the record, you put it on there, and there was speakers on the side. In order so the record, the toe arm wouldn't skip, I had to stack like quarters on it. So I would put like heavy weight on there so it wouldn't skip. So, and this thing still plays and it's not see-through. So maybe part of that, what they're saying is true, but that it's also I think that's an overblown statement, because this record still fucking plays, and I hear it, the scratches and the dust pops of my childhood. It's weird. It's really weird. It takes me back every single time. All right. That started me on the journey. Kellen.
Oh
wait, Jurgen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, okay, when I was 11, I started listening to Maiden, and then got a little bit into Ozzy and all the stuff. About a year later, when I was 12, I met a couple of older guys that I met in the public swimming pool. They were sitting in the back under a tree. They had a ghetto blaster and were blasting heavy music. So I just walked up to them, and they accepted me, or they accepted us, me and my friend. And that's the way, pretty early on, that I got into the hardcore scene.
That's a great album. That's a great live record.
Like Agnostic Front, very early on, Verbal Abuse, the old Wehrmacht stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that stuff. And a very, very important band back then was the Misfits. I know a lot of people think this is the worst Misfits record because it's too fast, too much hardcore. But I think, yeah, maybe I've got a relationship with that. So it's my favorite Misfits. And a little bit later on, we've got the Crumbsuckers.
That's a great record.
Early COC.
I like early COC. Yeah.
COC was my entry to the hardcore scene because I saw Jeff Hanneman wearing his old COC shirt.
Yep.
And Another very important band in my life is NDC.
Yep. Millions of Dead Cops.
Yeah, more Dead Cops.
That's a good
Millions
album
of Dead Cops. Yeah.
Yep.
That is a compilation of their early singles.
Did it change too to Millions of Damn Christians? I mean, they changed it every album, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Yep.
They played a show here about 4 years ago, and it was still very good.
Oh, did you go?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
So I got into the hardcore scene pretty early on. I don't talk about that very much. I think a lot of people don't know that I also listen to hardcore and punk music. So,
you know what? They're so. I mean, there's strange bedfellows, but it makes sense. There's an extremity there between metal and punk, and you start looking at thrash. Thrash is really influenced by punk, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And crossover is a prime example of how the two can live together quite comfortably. You know.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Kellen.
We'll continue that theme. Now, this is a little bit different, but an important record for me just because it shifted, like, not only, I would say probably the important bands or key bands in the genre, but also sort of expectations for how a record should sound. So this is...
I love that record. I love them. It's a great band.
Die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a whole different class, right? So when you're young and you get thrown a record like this, it just felt like I was trying, you have aspirations of a record that's beyond your years, and this definitely was. When I found out, of course, like just a little bit knowledge about my childhood growing up, like my father was an English teacher, my mom's a librarian. So the fact that this was inspired by Orwell's 1984, was another like an added component that made this a compelling listen because, they wanted to talk about it with me. But just the lyrics are, I mean, amazing, but also, when you're young reading it, it just also is a little bit intense, right? It just, I think for a lot of different ways, though, this is something that I was not going to get in a classroom, though. For me, especially young growing up, it's one of the more important aspects of like grabbing the records during your youth that are most meaningful is it's also like music that's not necessarily limiting what you can know or what you should know. You're there to sort of discover it for yourself. And a lot of these records early on, sort of, I think about that time period in my life and kind of getting exposed to something that no one else was going to tell me.
I would say also the when that band got back together, they're still just as good. And Internal Riot is really good. And the self-titled, or what the hell is it called? I have it on vinyl. I can't remember the name of it. They're good. They sound like they haven't missed a beat. It still sounds like the Subhumans. Really good stuff. All right. Obviously, a lot of years have passed, and I'm not going to go through every single step of my journey here, but I've been reconnecting with this band this year, the last year or two. And I have very fond memories of Rat. It's one of those bands that during the hair metal scene, I didn't like a lot of it. I wouldn't call Ozzy and Dio hair metal, but they were in that era. I was listening, like Jurgen, I was listening to a lot of that stuff too. I actually was into Ozzy before I heard Black Sabbath. So and Ozzy was way more, he was way more in the public eye around the time I started getting into this stuff than Sabbath was. I mean, so yeah, in fact, I think the first Ozzy song I ever heard was I saw on MTV, the Bark at the Moon video. That might've been one of the first ones. And made me like, wow, this is great. What a great song. What a great record. I ended up getting that, then backtrack and then discover Sabbath, Dio, all that stuff. But there was not many bands like this in my collection. I did have the first Cinderella, which I've just recently rebought and enjoy. Tesla, I just rebought their first one and enjoy it. But this band, they stood out. Yeah, they were lumped into the hair metal. They dressed the part. They had a shredder guitar player, good songwriting, and a unique singer that wasn't as pretty sounding. He had a rasp to his voice, and the way they stacked him in the choruses and stuff just really big. And I loved Out of the Cellar. That was the first one I heard, but this one I think quickly became my favorite. I really like the one after this one too. I just remember family trips. It's funny. My wife and I, our families were mutual friends, and they would go on like end of summer trips. They'd get in a motorhome and drive and bar hop essentially along the coast of Michigan. And I'd be in the back listening to this on Walkman. So I just remember going to all the beaches, Lake Michigan, running around in the water, and then getting back and listening to this, and then going to the next bar and trying to get quarters from our parents so we could play video games and shit. It was fun. But yeah, this is very much a summertime record for me, and it's a band that I still to this day appreciate. Good stuff. Takes me back. Jurgen.
Yeah, another thing we have already talked about, a thing to get into new music back then were compilation LPs.
I do, Wilson. Who cannot? I mean, who can deny it? Perfect. Anyway, sorry.
So compilations were pretty cheap back then. So when I guess I was still 12 years old, I bought that one. And Time to Rock, yeah.
Yep.
And it had Mötley Crüe, Faster Pussycat, Raven, Tesla, as you mentioned. First time I heard Metal Church, Fighting the World from Manowar. And the one that blew me away was the last track on the album is Burnt Offerings by Testament.
Nice.
So in 1987, I was hooked on thrash metal. Burnt Offerings starts off with this acoustic thing, then it gets heavy, and then it gets fast. So a perfect song, and shortly after that, I got that one.
Oh, such a great record. What a great... That record, is that record perfect? It might be perfect. It's a perfect thrash record, really.
Best thrash metal record ever made.
Is it the best debut? Is there a better thrash debut?
Nope.
Okay.
Not even Bonded by Blood, not Kill 'Em All, not Show No Mercy. It's The Legacy by Testament. At least for me. Not only debut album, best thrash album ever made.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it sticks to me ever since.
And we had Mike on a couple of weeks ago, Metal Mickey, and he was there's no understating the impact that Testament had on the UK scene.
Mm-hmm.
They're people in the UK love Testament, and it seems like it was a European thing as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. A year later, they replaced Megadeth at the Monsters of Rock show with Kiss and Iron Maiden. So Megadeth had to cancel because of Mr. Mustaine's drug habits. So they choose Testament to step in for Megadeth, and that says a lot, I think.
So I'm just curious, more than any of the German bands, you still think that Testament's the record? I'm just curious as to someone who was in Germany at the time, like why you would side with a Testament record.
We've got a saying here in Germany. It says the prophet in its own land is worth nothing.
Okay.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
I didn't get in touch with German thrash metal right when I started. I got there pretty early, but not right when I started, because we were looking out to the US bands and the UK bands. So
it's so funny because it seems like people don't love their local scene, because I loved all the American thrash bands, but man, it was Germany, that dark, evil, ripping, you had Creator with Pleasure to Kill, that thing. Wow.
Yeah, you always want what you can't get.
Exactly. Right. Exactly right.
And that was back when we were young. A lot of these LPs they didn't have a good distribution. I think it's the same in the US. You have to look and pay for a German noise pressing, something like that.
That's why Noise Records was such a big deal, and that's why a lot of those bands are still going today, because say what you want about Walterbach, he might have screwed over a lot of people, but
Hmm?
there's bands like Creator, Tankard, Sabbath, all the bands that were from that classic era were in my local, just up the road in the old mall at Camelot Music, all there. Scanner,
Yeah.
I could buy the Scanner tape. England, you could go to England. England had its own noise office. He
Mhm.
got around, and there's shit, say what you want. These bands, Tom Warrior might not have had a career if it wasn't for Noise International. He might not. No one would have ever heard of Celtic Frost or Hellhammer.
Yeah,
You
like
know.
you said, you can talk about Walterbach. I think he's full of shit, but he did a good job back then, at least for distribution.
Agreed, 100%.
So we had SPV here in Germany, and we had ARC Records and Bonebreaker Records, a lot of local stuff, early Century Media. But back then, in the 80s, none of these labels had distribution in the US, but Noise Records, they had. Yeah.
Yep. And he had his ear to the ground, too. Whether you like the guy or not, he put out great stuff. He put out, whether he liked the bands or not, he just did it. I don't know. I don't know. Reading that book really changed I still love Noise Records, but I was disappointed to hear the guy was a kind of a jerk, but I guess that's what it takes to be a businessman. I don't know.
I think it's funny. He came from a punk rock background. Punk rock,
yeah.
German punk rock is known for not being very organized, more for its disorganization and its laziness. So he came from that background and made it with metal.
Yep. Crazy. All right, Kellen.
Okay, so a local prophet, we'll go with that. This is a band, so being from Oregon, when I was getting more and more into punk and hardcore, this was like a record that I learned sort of others recommended I needed to have. So
Poison Idea rules.
Poison Idea, Kings. I mean, interesting, like I was spinning it this past week. I also didn't probably realize it. This was maybe one of those first bands that gave me a little bit of an inroads into a metal sound. I hear that when I listen to it now, but back then it was just like, hey, here's a band from Portland. And this is a very different time in Portland's history. Like, it just another side note in terms of nostalgia. Growing up in Oregon, Portland has kind of turned into this like a place where everyone from Seattle and San Francisco have moved. But it used to be like a port city. And back in the 80s and 90s, it was a totally different place. And I remember going there as a child, and I miss what the city used to be a little bit. So I'm still a diehard Oregonian, but nonetheless, this record's awesome. And a Pacific Northwest kid, like I had to get into this record. I still, out of the many one that I will show tonight, this is one that I will pull out on a consistent basis and enjoy. So,
have you heard War All the Time? That's one of my favorites by them. I really like that record.
Yeah.
All right, I guess it's circle to me. I don't know if I pulled enough stuff. All right, we get through, the Ozzies and the Sabbaths and the Dios and the Rats, and all of a sudden this band lands in my orbit, and it was this album I heard first. In fact, I think the first song my buddy Scott played for me was Fight Fire with Fire. That's on this one, right? Yeah. Lead off track. I laughed. I'm like, what the hell is this crap? It's rah, 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 rah. Who does it sound like? Cookie Monster, all this, the typical shit. Yeah, he's like, whatever, dude, this shit's awesome. And he was right. I went home. He dubbed me a copy of it. I went home. I listened to it. End up loving it. And these are all my OG tapes from back in the day. Notice the other one, the fourth one isn't on here, which I did like as well, but not as much as these. These were definitely. I remember when this stuff, when I got into Ozzy and then I got Metallica, all these classic Kiss posters that were hanging in my childhood bedroom were ripped off the walls. thrown in the garbage can. And I'm just like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Stupid. I don't know if I could have retired on them now, but there's so many reprints of them out there. I find myself looking them up on eBay and going, they want that much for that? That's so... Anyway, yeah, this band single-handedly changed my paradigm. Maiden was in here. I was into Maiden at this point. I had the only Judas Priest I owned was Turbo on tape. So I missed out on Priest until later, but Maiden was very much a part of my world as well. But Metallica, Speed, Aggression. It's funny now, you go back and listen to these things now. I still love them. They've taken me back, and splitting wood with my Walkman and cleaning out the dog's pens and stuff. I would have these were the soundtrack of my teenage years doing chores, but this was the linchpin that got me into thrash metal and heavier things. And, Testament to Legacy wasn't far behind. I'm going to show some other stuff here that ended up being huge. Creator being another one, the whole German thing. Once I discovered that, oh my God, I was so enamored by all things German, from Death Row to Tankard to Creator. You got the Neighbors, the Country Neighbors, and Corner, all that stuff. Just humongous. Anything that was on Noise, big fan. Halloween. And funny thing, if you want to drink, if you're waiting for me to say Halloween, drink. Also, the picture I pulled of Vakken, it's actually Halloween on stage. I didn't know if anybody noticed that, but I thought that was kind of a clever little thing to put up there too. So bonus points. That's a little Easter egg. But yeah. Metallica. And I think there's probably, from our age group, Metallica was probably big in your world too, wasn't it, Jurgen? To a certain extent.
Yeah, it was. But I got a little bit of the same experience. One day we visited a friend of my father's, and they had a son that was a little bit older than me, and he played me Battery because Master of Puppets just came out.
Yep.
And I listened to it, and I said, "Is this really music?"
It was crap. It was the same way.
Yeah, but we all do, we develop fast, and shortly after that, I got into Venom.
Yep.
I pulled that out because it had the singles from 1980 to 1986, so it is a good representation of all the early Venom stuff. And I remember when we were 12, 13 years old, we thought that was so fucking evil. We used to close the shades of the room, lit up some candles, and pretended we were celebrating a black mass.
Yep.
And we over and over we listened to the beginning of In League with Satan that had the backward messaging in the beginning, and At War with Satan with its intro, and oh my God, we were so fucking evil. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was right around the time the Norwegian black metal scene started.
Yep.
We were first.
All right. Kellen, you're next.
There's some grainy black and white photos, I'm sure, of young Jurgen with his candles in the room.
Have you seen the videos where he's showing his old demos of his first band, or it was just him and a guy with no drums just making racket on a cassette? Well, that's true cult.
Yeah,
true German cult.
We're going to talk about that one as well.
All right, so moving on next. Band, I guess, I don't know what to say here other than DRI. When I first started listening, there's another West Coast band, right? There's kind of a theme here happening, but these songs are so short yet catchy. I think that's the biggest thing that struck me about them is they're almost bordering on grind, just in terms of how short and quick and easy they are, but it's definitely coming from sort of a punk sound. I probably should mention this, I grew up in the digital era at this point in time.
Sure.
So I'm picking up bands and just constantly consuming as much of the music as I can. This is, you know, I got this later on in my life. My first time exposing, you know, hearing DRI was through, you know, digital content, but a classic band, and probably out of the crossover that got mentioned, similar to Poison Idea, is like one of those first, I don't know it at the time, but it's sort of inroads for me into getting into metal later on. But classic band, short, 22 songs here, brief, easy, cruise on through.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a perfect EP. Yeah, I saw them about 10 or 12 years ago, and that is he called Harold Oilmanen, who took the old Metallica pictures?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
He wrote that thrash metal book that came out about the Bay Area a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, that guy, the Murder in the Front Row guy.
Yeah, Harold. Yeah. Oh, he's called. Yeah, and he played bass for DRI back then. Oh. And I was standing outside smoking a joint, and he walked by. He smelled it. He like put me under his armpit and dragged me into the backstage room.
It's time for you to share.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. Jurgen broke the seal with Venom. After Metallica, it wasn't much longer that I discovered this. There was a local college radio show at WNMC. They had a metal show. Keith, guy's name was Keith, sounds stoned all the time. He played a lot of this stuff, Venom and Metallica. But during this time, it was a Satanic Panic. So this was even more scary because it was being pumped into our brains on TV, especially being in Michigan. There was a televangelist local to Michigan, Jack Van Impe, and he was on every week in the evening, all excited about the rapture and dying. The thing that was grossest about that was how excited he was to die. It was like morbid watching him. Like, this dude is so excited to croak. Anyway, you know, talking about all these bands, and those shows ended up being kind of like a wish list. Like, oh, okay, he's talking about Venom and Merciful Fate. I need to check these bands out. And this did not disappoint. I mean, here's Jurgen in his childhood bedroom, everybody. He's pretending he's at a black mass. But there's no understating what Venom did. I love their songs. I love their sound. No one really sounded like Venom. No one did. They're a very unique band, and how they took metal infused with punk. I mean, a lot of people are like, the punk is here. And you want another punk aesthetic about this whole thing is probably unintentional. If you watch the videos that came out, live, the 7 Dates of Hell and live in '85, Abaddon or Abaddon or however you say his name, he is so off time. His timing is so terrible. He's not a good drummer. But the fact that the band plays along with him, they rehearse that way. That's the way their songs were. All of that contributed to the overall sound of Venom. Add, tongue-in-cheek satanic lyrics. As an adult, yeah, they're ridiculous. And even the band will tell you how ridiculous they are. But back then, it was kind of scary. A little scary. Really added to the whole Satanic Panic hype. It felt real. It felt edgy. It felt scary. And as a young, not a man yet, but I'm flirting with the idea. I'm out on my own a little bit, driving around cemeteries at night with my buddies, listening to this stuff. You feel just a little more evil when this is in the car deck. And the fact I can still put this on today, and it takes me back to those moonlit nights driving around in that shitty old Mazda that Scott had, that station wagon, little Mazda shitbox. But man, those are good times. You're out on your own, doing stuff on your own for the first time without having to be home at a certain time, and just out, not really raising hell, just listening to cool music. I was never a hell raiser, but just really realized how off-center black metal is. It kind of bothers me. See how it's like there's more space here than that shit drives me nuts. Anyway, this was a big one. Satanic Panic, Venom. They had their place. and there's a reason why there's still. In fact, there's two versions of the band now. There's the John Mantis version with Demolition Man, and there's the Cronus version. Are they both? They're both okay. They're both fine. Are they great? No, they're fine. But they're still riding on the success of those early 4 albums. 5 albums, maybe. Possessed they start to lose me at Possessed. But anyway.
So for both of you, you just both, picked a Venom record. Would you from my side of things, when I'm looking back at bands that are considered first wave black metal, at this point, I got to sort of pick and choose which bands I wanted to listen to. Did you feel that was the first band everyone was listening to, and the rest of the bands, your Bathories and Celtic Frost and all of that was far less accessible or less visible, that you really had to hunt for and you got into later? Or was Venom that much more visible by comparison?
I think Venom had more, from my standpoint, had more in the public eye. They were more popular. Bathory kind of seemed like the underground thing that I found by happenstance. What's the other band you mentioned?
Celtic Frost.
Frost were huge. It was a noise band. So I bought that shit when it was Hellhammer because it was on noise. I'm like, yep. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm getting it, and loved it.
Yeah, early Hellhammer stuff.
Yep.
It even says in there, on the black metal album, they had some sentence written down at the bottom: "Venom are killing music." And in the very first Hellhammer demo, you can't read that. Venom are killing music. Hellhammer are killing Venom. So it's stated on that demo.
Right. North of the Rockies, you didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. You're too kind. I appreciate it. When someone accuses you of trying to recapture your metal, you tell them you don't need to recapture something never left. True. 100% true.
It's just I think both of you, because sure, I think they're the first, right? I don't think anyone would debate that. But at the time that you're getting into them, there's more and more bands that are out there that you could potentially consume. So I'm just curious, were they, because it's the Satanic Panic, because they're the first, is that why I think most people will refer to them initially as the band that kind of got them into that sound?
I would agree with that. I mean, I heard Venom before I heard Celtic Frost. I heard Venom before I heard Merciful Fate, but the Merciful Fate were really close behind. It was a matter of a month, maybe, when I discovered them both.
I think Venom had the songs. They were memorable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They had hits. So to speak, hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. You listen to them once or twice and you can sing along to them.
And they networked. I mean, they had the networking. They got hooked up with Neat, and there you had Canadian Assault, you had Japanese Assault. I mean, all these different, when they go on tour, they were a touring band, whereas, Hellhammer, not so much.
No.
Celtic Frost didn't start getting out until their second or third record? I don't know. They went to Canada. They did the World War III Fest. So they did play, but Venom were on world tours. And, Celtic Frost hit America too. It's all so nebulous, and the time kind of lumps together in my brain, unfortunately. But I just think Venom had more worldwide. Jurgen's right. They had the songs. They had catchy songs, simple catchy songs. They had the lyrics for the time, and they had
the images,
the imagery, the photos they took. I mean, that was a big. There was no internet shit back then. I mean, you all the magazine pictures and stuff. They actually they worked.
Yeah, and you read the interviews, and the interviews were maybe not meant funny, but they were funny.
Yeah.
So that was another bonus point.
And they're over the top and funny. Yep.
I think Hellhammer took them a little bit too serious, but Venom had the fun in it. And
Hellhammer were pretty universally slammed, weren't they? I mean, no one really liked them until later.
Yeah. Speaking of Venom, I saw them once I've seen Venom a couple of times, but I saw the original lineup playing in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I had tears in my eyes when they started the show.
Was it during that Cast in Stone era when they got back together?
It was right before Cast in Stone came out, so they only played all the old hits from the first 3 albums. Yeah.
That I got that Cast in Stone on vinyl. I think it's a 3 LP set. The third record is them redoing all this old stuff. They ripped it. They're great versions of those songs. I'm like, man, they still got the sauce. You know, it's cool to hear, and they sounded aggressive and cool. And even though Cast in Stone's an okay album, the getting the vinyl for just the them doing the old songs again it's worth it. It's a cool collection.
So, like I said, I had tears in my eyes when they started to play. They played about 40 minutes or something, and then they closed the curtain again to rebuild the stage with other images and all the steps up there and other platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Kronos walked in front of the curtain and played a bass solo for 20 minutes. And then I had tears in my eyes again because I was laughing so much.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is not. They did a video for the Dynamo show that year in 1996. They released that. You can find that on YouTube. Unfortunately, the bass solo is not part of it.
Or Jurgen crying. That's not part of the video either.
No.
That's a different video. Anyway, Jurgen, you're next.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the local scene like I said, we met a lot of older friends, and some of them had bands like, damn it, this doesn't work. A band called BHP, Blood Hungry Piranhas. That was they called themselves sadistic deathcore. So we knew that these guys, and we hang around in the practice room. Then we had another band simply called, God damn it, Aggressor.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. That demo came out in 1988. We hung around with them. Then they played one single show, and they recorded it for a live album.
It's kind of a cool cover. I kind of like that artwork. That'd be a cool shirt.
Yeah. And by the end of 1988, we decided to form our own band. And we were called Conjuration. And the tape was called The Chocolate Message. Because we were singing about food, because we always liked ice cream and Mars and Snickers and Twix or whatever, or cheesecake. Song. You want to know a couple of song titles?
Yeah, I do.
Wait a second. I've got the lyric sheet for that as well.
You should do some karaoke covers of that on your channel when you start back up. This is you, and I like chocolate and I like ice cream.
Yeah. Till Käsekuchen is cheesecake. Till cheesecake do us eat. Yeah. Some of them are German. I can't translate them because, yeah.
They're just meant to be in German, and that's that.
Yeah, we knew the song Ausgebombt by
Sodom.
By Sodom, and we made a song called Ausgelümmelt, and Lümmel is another word for cock or dick. Just stupid ass shit. But I'm proud that I still own that. And we advertised that in magazines, and really people bought that and asked us about shirts. So
there's other people that like chocolate and candy too. I mean, you're definitely in a market there that's unique for sure.
Yeah. So
Who said no to Twix? I can't say no to Twix. Look at me, I'm fat. Fuck no.
So we used to buy white shirts, drew the logo on the front, and wrote a recipe for cheesecake on the back. And we sold them.
Oh, so was there a drummer in this band, or is it just you guys playing guitar and screaming over the top of it?
There's you can call him a drummer. He couldn't play. We just got a couple of buckets. We stole some cymbals from the orchestra in our school, so at least we had cymbals. And we practiced in my grandmother's kitchen.
Nice.
Yeah.
While she was making sweet cheesecake.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
So at that time, we used to get in contact with a band called Lucifer's Heretic.
I know that band. Isn't that Blind Guardian guys?
Yeah, they're called Blind Guardian now, yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to trade demos, and I know Andre has still got his old Conjuration tape.
Dude, that was such a huge influence on their first album, I'm sure.
Yeah. They got their epicness from us.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Oh my God. I love it.
Is there any way you can post this? Like, can you put that up for people to actually listen to? I really think
no.
The chat is clamoring. They need this to happen.
They need it. Yep, right here. Ryan's like, I gotta hear this tape. Me too.
I did a video a couple of years ago, but that is since deleted. So I played a little bit of it. I maybe I should do that again. Just a little bit. You need to hear 20 seconds, and you've got enough of it already.
Well, we'll be the judge of that. Ryan wants one starting the bidding at 20. So, well, here we go. Maybe we need to repress it. It needs a vinyl repressing. Go talk to High Roller. You want something from the vault? Here we go.
Maybe I should talk to that Bindroom guy.
Yeah. Not really our demographic, but we can maybe figure something out. All right. Where are we at? Kellen's next. That's going to be hard to top. Let's see your bucket and chocolate store.
How do I transition? Battle Hymns the Race War. I mean, it's an interesting transition there, but Born Against. This will be my last sort of the really specific punk era of my life, but another classic punk record. This comes out in '93, I believe. I would even go so far to say, out of the records I've mentioned so far, this was a little bit more of a challenging playthrough. They have a very different sort of sound by comparison to a lot of the traditional hardcore I had heard, but this kind of is a transition time period for me. Listening to this band came towards the end of the 90s, and as we get into sort of the end of the 90s, early 2000s is when punk and metal start to blend a little bit more for me. So sort of a time period where I'm ready for this hardcore stuff to sort of transition into something else, and then something a bit more metal, but another classic hardcore record for me.
Awesome. Chocolate. Songs about chocolate and ice cream. Oh my God. All right, Satanic Panic. Venom was fine and dandy. That scared me a little bit, but man, when I heard these records, this where Venom was tongue in cheek, I was pretty sure Satan was real after I heard these records. And I mean, just from this picture alone. So good, so classic. And to this day, these are two of the most evil records ever written, in my opinion. Black metal had its moments for sure, but man, this stuff is just so authentic. It sounds like a Hammer horror film. It sounds like, you know, the spooky 70s horror films or suspenseful religious horror films like Exorcist. Mike, thank you so much. That's crazy, man. You didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. It helps. Keeps the show rolling. But yep, these two, again, the Satanic Panic, I'm thinking maybe these evangelical Christians have got something. Maybe it's true. I don't know. But man, some of the best music ever written are on these two records. I love them so much. They never get old. They just feel like a snapshot in time. I put them on and I'm there. I'm there watching TV on Sunday night, watching Jack Van Impe talk about the rapture and all these bands and how evil is coming for us and all that stuff. And Merciful Fate was the soundtrack for that. Absolutely great. And again, they take me back to my teenage years big time. Jurgen.
Have you ever seen the Fate live?
Fate live?
Merciful Fate.
I saw them, yeah. At the first year I went to the Milwaukee Metal Fest, I saw them reunited. It might have been around the 9 era, or maybe it was Time. I can't remember. I've seen King Diamond multiple times, twice actually, but yeah, they were great. They sounded great.
Yeah.
Okay, Jurgen.
Okay, so we slowly getting into the death metal, very, very early death metal. So we saw that in the magazines, and we urgently need to get it just for the cover.
Such a great record. That's my favorite death record, hands down.
That is a little bit similar to the Venom stuff. These are very, very memorable songs.
Yep.
I don't know if we are just imagining that because we lived with that record for forever. But at first listen, Zombie Ritual and Evil Dead, they are hit songs.
I think my favorite on there is Mutilation. I like Zombie Ritual a lot too. And Beyond the Unholy Grave. So good. Great songs.
We used to cover Zombie Ritual and Evil Dead on our first ever live show.
Nice.
So, and shortly after that, because there was no more death metal apart from, if you want to count Possessed, maybe, but there was the underground scene, and we needed more death metal, so I needed to get the Death by Metal demo.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was
ordered from America.
No, that is just a photocopy tape.
Oh, okay.
But it's from back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So that was my little journey into death metal. It developed pretty fast. I know you know what I mean, Marty.
Oh yeah. Once thrash at that point was getting really tired, and it was time for the next thing, and death metal was the next thing, and it lit like wildfire. I couldn't get enough. I had to have it all. I have to have all of it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Kellen.
All right. So here we go. I think a couple of these I've shown before, but kind of trying to take the sound of punk and make a transition into metal for me was kind of an awkward process. And I would have to personally say that's also in my head, like I didn't have that background of an established, thrash, death metal, black metal. Extreme metal was the 90s, but I was too young for it, so it all just passed over my head. So the stuff that was kind of coming out and being presented for younger fans sounded a little bit different. Here's an example of kind of what I mean here. So this is In the Eyes of God by Today Was the Day.
That album rules. I saw them a bunch during that era too. Interviewed them a couple times. Great. They were great.
It's, great record, but like also the sound of the guitars here, it's kind of grindy. Just such a high register in terms of the presentation, but Definitely a bit more of a metal record. For someone who was listening to punk, though, it was a great sort of transition here. And this label, I came on this Heavy Metallurgy to do a relapse episode. There'll be a couple of records that I pull from that era to revisit them, but important label and kind of an era for me personally.
Everybody's still going on about the chocolate stuff. Coca-Cola rules. Okay. Kellen kind of touched on this a little bit, but I had a friend, good close friend of mine, Scott. I'm talking about him a lot. He was very instrumental in getting me into the heavier stuff. I always hated it up first, but I ended up liking it. He was getting into punk and hardcore, which I was kind of getting into as well through him. But these two albums in particular, DRI is dealing with it, and The Accused, Martha Splatterhead's Maddest Stories Ever Told. Two of my favorite crossover albums. I could have pulled, Life of Dreams by Crumbsuckers. I could have pulled Beast on My Back by Crumbsuckers. But these two stand out. In fact, The Accused, these guys, holy crap. Blaine's vocals are just super sick, off the charts sick. Tommy's riffs, absolutely sharp as a tack, super catchy. They're just a perfect combination of metal and hardcore. But this album, this is just a special snapshot in time. They built upon the songs that were on the 7-inch that Kellen shown, and they made the songs longer, which allowed the catchiness to actually form into real songs, even though they're still short. There's 37 songs on here. This is a Beer City Records reissue, so I think there is some extra tracks on this. But man, this record still slays. I love the loud bass tone. You can tell he's playing with a Rickenbacker. It just has that Rickenbacker tone. The songs are sharp, they're fast, they're hard hitting. After this, the last album I like by DRI is Four of a Kind. They start a little more metalized there, and then they get into Thrash Zone and all these other records that are thrashy. They lost it. They just got really boring. Even Crossover, the album came out after this. Crossover, people show that all the time as influential and great. Man, I never liked that record. It was too rhymey. It was almost like hardcore rap. I just do not like his vocal is just two standout rhymes, obvious rhymes. They lost a lot. They streamlined a lot of the intensity and just they started to move away from this. This is just perfect record for these guys. But yeah, these two in particular, again, that Mazda wagon. I remember riding around listening to this stuff on tape, just loud as hell, windows down, just feeling like this is when I was during the time too where I was thinking that I could skateboard. that was a fun. I got myself a nice deck. I got myself nice setup and get around on it okay until one day I tried to do a boneless off of some stone steps and landed, hit my head on the concrete, and the board went one way, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm like, I'm too fat to fucking skateboard. I'm done. So that was the end of my skateboarding career. But this was kind of the soundtrack for that summer for sure. Love this stuff. Still to this day, endless classics.
The original has 25 songs.
Right on. I think I have that. Let's see the back of yours. I think I have that. I just didn't pull the vinyl. I don't know if I have that pressing, actually. It's an older pressing. Mine's, I think, is the U.S. pressing.
Yeah, it is an original, but it's the German license pressing. It says DRI, Bloody Skull Music, Death Records.
I've got the Death I got the Death Records version of it over there.
In Germany, it was out on Armageddon SPV.
Right on. You're up, Jurgen.
Okay. So, like I said, slowly getting into the death metal rounds and reaching out a little bit for more death metal. So we found a PayPal in is it PayPal?
PayPal?
Yeah. No. A pen pal.
Oh, pen pal. Yep.
Is that the right word?
Yep, pen pal. You're right.
I'm sorry. Yeah. In Brazil, and we started to trade. He was searching for very common stuff over here, like Exempt or Warlock or something like that, because he couldn't get it in in Brazil, and we started to trade records. So we got into the Brazilian shit pretty early on.
Nice.
Original. Yeah, we traded that. I forgot to pull out the Warfare Noise compilation and some Holocaust or stuff like that. So we were fixed with that shit pretty early on. So
have you taken the time to check out the redone albums of that?
yeah, I bought the CDs. I wanted them to okay. I saw the video for or the lyrics video for Morbid Visions for the Cavalera version of it, and I thought I was just wanting to have a laugh and clicked on it, and I was surprised how good it is. So I bought the CDs. I originally wanted to get it on vinyl, but they wanted 35 euros for a single record. So no.
Yeah.
I bought the CDs. But the re-recordings, they are fun to listen to. Yeah. I don't think they're bad.
I haven't gotten around checking them. I've listened to parts of them here and there. They sound pretty okay. I find myself not listening to the originals much, so I'm like, why would I buy the reissues when I don't really listen to the originals? If I'm gonna listen to, I'm gonna listen to the real thing, I guess. But I don't know.
Oh, I still play that old shit. I have to show you something because the other pressings don't have the merchandise forum, a little bit of an interview, and this one has got a lyric sheet.
Nice.
And let me see if I can find that photo. You can't really see that, but this is Igor Cavalera right there, having a shirt
with a swastika shirt on. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but that shows you they were coming from a punk background.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Did Cogumelo have a whole lot of like distribution? Like, is there any way that you could have got those records?
No, just by trading them. You couldn't find them in stores. At least not the originals. They were licensed by Shark Records here in Germany about a year after they came out. But I had them a little bit before that. They were just Cogumelo Records was a record shop. Actually, it was not a real quote unquote label. It was just a record shop. So even in Brazil, you had to search for the records. So they were not in every store. So no way to get them except for having friends in Brazil.
Right, it's just like such an important record label or record shop, but I mean, I had no distribution at the time, so trying to get the word out about the bands that were on the label was like impossible. It sounds like. Yeah,
the word spread around. Maybe in the early '90s, something like that. So Cogumelo was that big Brazilian label, but back then it wasn't. It just wasn't.
All right, Kellen.
Right there.
Okay, I think I've shown this before, and definitely I don't know if controversial is the term, but divisive band for sure from my youth, and I just can't talk about it this time period in my life without mentioning this band and this record. It's super nostalgic for me, but man, what do you want to say? This is Dillinger Escape Plan. And I like the coming from a punk, like having some history there and going to the shows, especially like the local young bands that wanted to sound like them, was such a divisive experience at a show. Like, you had a lot of the traditional punks who wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. I remember a band from Reno called Disconnect came up to Eugene, and they were the traveling band and headlining, and some local act that was trying to do their best Dillinger Escape Plan impression got up first to play, and then the fans stuck around for Disconnect, who were far more of a traditional hardcore band. And just the singer got up there and was like, if you're trying to ninja kick someone in the face, you can get the hell out. Like, just called people out and told them to get out of the show. They wanted nothing to do with it. It was just a totally different, like, divisive sort of time period for me. And I think a lot of the friends that I had who were more traditional punks really, like, resented the sort of cross-pollination to some degree between the two fan bases, who were, I guess, wanting the extremity of metal, but also entrance into the punk community with very little, like, knowledge or interest other than just being an extreme aggressive band, right? In some ways, I think Dillinger Escape Plan is remembered primarily for that sort of idea. Like, these were fans who weren't really into punk, and they weren't even metalhead, so it sort of was a weird middle ground people. But it was a time period in time. There were a lot of bands who were sounding like that during the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's the record. Calculating Infinity to me is the one, like, pioneering essential record in that time period.
I saw them 4 or 5 times during that era out east, and the way they attacked the audience, it was brutal. Like, just like beating on the crowd with the guitars and just going nuts, walking out on the people, running and jumping on people, jumping out into the crowd. And they were so amazing live. I can't believe they played that complex of music while freaking out. They're like having temper tantrums on stage. It was just freaking out crazy. Mm-hmm. It was cool. I would be on the stage, on the side stage a lot, so out of the line of fire because I'm smarter, but man, wow, they were over the top. Great band. That really inspired me to check out a lot of that. I mean, Relapse started getting into that. You had Today's a Day, although they came from the Amphetamine Reptile era with more noise rock and got heavier, but there was bands like Botch and a bunch of others too. I can't remember all the top of my head. I was into Converge. Yeah. Coalesce. Bunch of bands in that style.
Right.
And it was a kind of a fun time. It felt like the resurgence, like, taking the punk and metal crossover thing to the new extreme. It just modernized. It was very modern for the time. Cave In. Yep. Devil's Cheeseburger. Thanks for the assist on that. Cave In was another good one. But anyway, I'm still in the thrash world here because it all leads into this band was huge for me. Coroner, these three in particular. I really liked Mental Vortex as well, but the writing was on the wall. They started to simplify a little bit on there. The debut's my favorite. This would have been better if the vocals were louder. This album, I love the vibe and feel of this. The songs are really great. I love the social, political styled lyrics on here. Very good. And it spilled over into me wanting to play music. Not that I could play this good, because I can't. I still can't. After all these years, I still can't play this good. But, me and a buddy would get together, and we had our first band was called Grinch, which we were sad to find out there was other bands called Grinch, a bunch of them actually. And we could never find a drummer. So we would write these really complex, weird thrash songs with no drums. Just like, we could play really well together, but just no drums. And then we got hooked up with a guy, and I think the name of the band was Subjugator, something like that, where I was going to sing on it and I couldn't sing. So I was kind of whispering. And that was TJ entered that band briefly, and he remembered coming to a practice, and I was in my members only jacket with short hair trying to sing, and he thought it was pretty shitty, and it was pretty shitty. He was not wrong. But I listen to these records and it takes me back to just the wonder of what thrash metal could be. And there was just a wonder of the European sound. There was an atmosphere to this stuff, especially the first Corner record. It's a very atmospheric, dark record, which I really like. And, you know, I'm going to show Creator here in a minute on my next go around, but Europe had the atmosphere and more emotion with the aggression, mixed with the aggression, where the American scene, you know, like the Testaments of the World, the Forbiddens, which I love all that stuff. I love it all, but they're just more technical, just weird. There's just more polished. I think the American scene was just more polished and more maybe leaning in on the punk side a little bit, just a little bit. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but no, I see these CDs sitting on the shelf where I put them on, and it's like I'm snapped back to that time where I was a teenager and just enamored by the wonder of European thrash metal. It just, you know, like we talked to Mike, we talked to Jurgen, you know, the US sound was kind of that for them, which I get. Like I said, no one likes their local scene, but just the fact that Corner, and now that Corner's back, I wish they weren't, because they're just not doing anything with it. Anyway, Jurgen, you're up.
Corner was also a big inspiration. We were talking about death a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Starting with spiritual healing, you can hear the death became a lot more technical.
Yep.
And on some of the band photos, you can see
Corner shirt.
Wearing
Yep.
a Corner shirt. Yeah.
Yep.
So they were pretty important band, yeah.
And what the hell, I've seen people in the VC showing off Grin and saying how much they like it. I'm just like, what are you I own it. I need to go revisit it and see if I'm missing something, but I remember that sucking real bad, and I don't remember it being nothing redeemable about it. Considering the line is like, talk about a band that fell off. And then the one guy went on to join Creator, and they did Endorama, which is another abortion of a record. Oh my God. It was Darcy the other day showing Endorama, saying how much he liked the record. I'm just like, oh my God, no. No, you're so wrong on this one. I veto your opinion. Anyway. Cheers, Darcy. We love you. We love you, man. It's all good.
Yeah, looking back at Grin, it's not a terrible album, but it's not a good album.
Oh my God, it's not Corner.
It's okay. I saw them on the tour and they were pretty good, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, expanding our contacts in the thrash metal world.
Ah, so good.
Paradox.
First two Paradox records are great. Second one in particular.
I think the debut is a little bit better.
It's a lot more Metallica. It's a lot more
Metallica, yeah.
Yeah.
So I found out Charlie, the leader of Paradox, was not living too far from here. So I tried
to go knock on his door. Hey, what's up?
No, I wrote him a letter, and that was in 1987, and we are still in contact.
Nice.
So back then, I asked him some stupid questions. I was 12 or 13 years old. Can you write me down the tabulature of for that and that song? And guess what? He did it, and he taped me the first demos.
Nice.
These are still original from Mr. Charlie Steinhauer. I've got a live album that was never released in good quality.
Nice.
You can't even find that on YouTube. Nowhere else to be found.
Wonder why they never released it.
Yeah, because it was for their first album, and a live album after the first album. There you go. That is where the collection is.
Yeah.
So, original Paradox demos. Yeah, and sometimes I have tears in my eyes for still being in contact after 35 years.
So after Heresy, I've lost contact. I know you said that they put out some good stuff still.
Mhm.
But what about the comeback? Was it what you expected?
It still sounds the same. It's
Really?
fast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's melodic. It's thrash metal. Nothing modern sounding to it.
Good.
Nothing.
Okay, cool.
The comeback album from 2000, I guess, Collision Course, is one of my favorites by them. And
Yep.
a lot of people I know, like I said, they live pretty close by. A lot of people joining the band I know personally, and with some of them I was in a band before they joined Paradox.
So if he were to write you a letter and say, Jurgen, we need you to do vocals for the next album, are you going to come out of retirement for that?
Yeah, no. I don't want to fuck up Paradox. Nope.
Oh, you wouldn't. You'd be fine. You'd be just fine.
No.
I got to tell you, I listened to that Violation album you did the other day. I was listening to it in the shop while I was printing, and I like it a lot. Maybe because I know you, but I like it a lot better now than I did when it came out. I'm like, you know what? This was really in the pocket for what was going on. You're kind of going for that Gothenburg melodic death metal thing, and you kind of did it. It was good. It's a good record.
Yeah, but I didn't sing on it. That is why it's good.
Oh, well, I thought you sang on that one.
No. There's just a photo of me on that album. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, I'm all confused. So I like the record. I like it now more than I did when it came out. Anyway.
Yeah, it was released by Redstream, and
it was Redstream. Yep.
Yeah, and the Redstream guy was a good friend of
Patrick. He was a good dude. I liked him.
He was a good friend of Andrew from what's that band?
Judas Iscariot.
Yeah, and Andrew lived in Nuremberg at that time during the early 2000s. Yep. And Patrick came to visit him, and we met up there and had a big party.
Yeah,
a big. We had an open air party, and Andrew and Patrick were coming, and we were sitting in my car for the whole evening just smoking weed.
Well, you Germans know how to party in a car.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. Kellen.
Okay. So 2000 here, I'm still in high school. And I go in to pick up another Relapse release. So I went in and I picked up, I picked this up on vinyl since, but this is Exhumed Slaughter Cult. And I go to the counter, and the guy just notices that I'm picking this up and starts up a conversation, and it's like starts to talk about, hey, here's some other sort of metal listens that you should check out if you haven't heard of them, and so on and so forth. Puts down a list, start up a conversation, and this is one of the records that he recommended.
That's a victory swing right there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's so many times during the course, like I wasn't prepared for it, but at the same time, it like absolutely grabbed me. I now listening to it, there's things that I will notice and appreciate, but it's still my favorite Carcass record. I think out of the catalog, it's their best.
It depends on, it's either that one or Necroticism.
Yeah, Necroticism.
It's so close.
Here's the thing, though. Necroticism to me always sounded like a lighter version of this record, a cleaner, prettier version of this record.
The songs are they tidied them up a bit.
Right.
Better production too, maybe. But man, that record you're holding in your hand is, the riffs are so sinister and great. Oh my God.
The riffs, the sound, the first time I heard like that kind of pitch shifted vocals.
Ruptured and Purulence. What a track.
God. Like it's just the whole eerie sort of start of it, where it's sort of like pulsating, sort of weird sort of synth thing going on.
Yep.
It just was a whole other league for me. And I heard it when I was, there was no peers, right? Like none of my friends are listening to this. So there's like an important part of getting into a record, your collection and developing a sense of taste, whatever, where it's kind of your own, right? Like there's no one else I'm sharing this with at the time. Wasn't until I got to college where I actually like met people who'd be into this stuff. But a super important record for me, and still to this day is like, if I had to list of like the most important metal records in my collection, like that's going to be top 5 for sure.
Right on. Great. Mine too. I mean, God, we'll get into them here a little bit later.
So Marty, I've got a question for you. Depending on Carcass, where did you first hear them?
Carcass?
Yeah.
I believe it was the Grind Crusher comp. That one.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to be showing that here a little bit later. But
yeah. Exempt
and then a buddy of mine, I actually bought it shop in Grand Rapids on cassette, Recaputrefaction. Man, I struggled hard with it. I still don't love that record. It's such a mess. And it's so I liked it then, but I didn't love it. And my buddy ended up buying Symphonies, and I didn't run out and buy it when it came out because I was still a little bit, I don't know if I like this or not. But and then Symphonies, I mean, when I first heard it, it seemed like it was a lot to take, but you have to work at it. And once you get it, it unlocks. It's like, holy crap, what was I thinking? It's crystal clear. The riffs are just so stand out, and the production is awesome, super sick. But their debut is so rough around the edges. It's not a fun listen for me. I know people that like it. It's entertainment and half music. Exactly, Wade. But yeah. What was yours? Same.
Yeah.
Jurgen?
Also a grind crusher with Exhume to Consume.
Yeah. I love how it's like the beginning where it's like scraping on the. It's like a different version from the album. Yeah. Very cool.
I just found out. I have the Grind Crusher with the single.
Oh shit!
With this, can you see that all the written stuff on here?
Oh shit! That's interesting.
It's got You Suffer on one side, 1 second.
Yeah.
So you've got that little bit of a song, and all of that is
Dead Wax.
Yeah. And on the B side, it's got Electro Hippies, Mega Armageddon, Death Part 3, which is also a song of 1 second.
Well, Electro Hippies was Jeff Walker's band before Carcass.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So this is considered the shortest 7-inch in the world.
That's hilarious. My version did not come with that.
I just found that out.
Yep. All right. Is it my turn? Mm-hmm. All right. I got a little out of whack here with my chronological. We'll do this one next. This is another graveyard cruising classic for me. Man, I love this record, and this is the only one by this. I mean, the one before it was okay, but this one, another special moment in time. This record is so damn good. It's like, I don't know, man. There's a little Metallica in here, maybe a little Testament in here, but just Psy's vocals are so cool, and the lyrics are evil. And again, it was during the Satanic Panic era, and it just fit right in there with what I was listening to. And we had this one on cassette. We'd cruise around the graveyard, 8th Street Cemetery, big old cemetery here in town, moonlit nights, jamming to this stuff, thinking we were so spooky and cool. But God, what an album. And then this is another one of those bands who the first 3 albums don't sound anything alike to each other. Sentence did it. We've talked about bands in the past that have done it. These guys were it, but this is the album. This is the onslaught I wish would have continued for a while. You know, the Grimmett guy joined on the album afterwards. I don't even know. I have the Shell Shock single, and I didn't like it because it wasn't this. But this is, man, what a classic. Not many people talk about this, which is too bad because it's a great thrash album. This is one of England's treasures as far as this, Sabbath. There's some other okay thrash bands in England, but they were late to the party. and I didn't love a lot of the stuff. It's been interesting watching the English guys show things, and everybody like gravitates to Acid Rain, and funny thrash, I just cannot. I'm a little iffy on that stuff. And Mickey had me check out the first Zentrix, which is okay, but they wanted to be Testament. I hear a lot of Testament on that record. This is kind of a standalone. They got it right. This is right. They did a good thing. It's got, there's some American influence on it, but it still sounds English. It's cool. Man, what a great album. Awesome. Flame of the Antichrist. Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, a little Show No Mercy in there too. Also, Alex, you're right. You know what? We're gonna get into this conversation now. Everybody is still like, now it's like the be all end all is saying that Seven Churches is death metal. Man, when it came out, it was a dark thrash record. It's still in my brain as a thrash record. Always will be. I don't know, but who am I? What do I know? Anyway.
For Onslaught, it was the other way around for me. I was hooked on that debut album, Power from Hell.
Power from Hell. It's good. It's a little more venomy, a little more crusty. I like it, but man, that one really did it for me.
They came from a punk background.
They did, and
they on the second album, on the fourth, they lost all the punk influences.
Yep.
So nowadays I like the fourth better, but back then, no way you could get me into that album.
Right.
I thought they wimped out.
I can see that because it sounds like a different band.
And I was only 13 years old, so what do I know about wimping out?
What do we know? This all matters boils down to opinion, you know.
Speaking about a little bit punky, dirty stuff, that one was my first contact with German thrash metal. Is it thrash metal? Is it
pseudo black metal?
I think it's just nothing core.
Yeah. It's a snapshot in time, man. I think that band got better.
Yeah, just look at
that was my haircut through all my life while I lived with my parents until I moved out. I could actually. I had a friend that had dreadlocks. He's like, my dad's like, you're not gonna look like Scott, so you're gonna have this crappy bowl haircut that your mom's gonna cut for you every day. It was terrible.
So that was another album.
It says it's Jurgen core.
Yeah. That enabled us to be satanic as hell.
Right.
I like it that much. I bought the reissue that came out a couple of years ago as well.
How did the reissue? What did they do to it? Did they mess with the mix and all that stuff?
No, nothing like that. But I used to play that way more often because it's got all the songs on one side. So I don't have to flip it around.
What's that?
The backside is just you can see.
The
a little bit. Yeah.
I wonder what the vinyl variant of that is. That officially creamy semen color? Is that? Yeah.
That is the Wax Maniacs. And you called it Creamy Semen. I used to call the label Vix Maniacs. And Vixen in Germany means to jerk off. So you got the connection there.
Great minds think alike. Yeah. Mm. Or North of the Rocky says white chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, you people are so good. I love it. That'll be on the next demo from Jurgen will be white chocolate in German.
Yeah. So Sodom made us a little bit more evil back then.
Yep. All right, Kellen.
All right. So my punk stuff still was. I mean, I've kind of kept tabs on it over the years, but I was still. Played a good amount of my listening rotation.
I want to interrupt you for a second. You never did really get into, because knowing what punk people think of metal and vice versa. I mean, I think that the the infighting and all that stuff has diminished over the years. It was a bigger deal in the 80s and 90s. But what were your friends thinking when their buddy Kellen was starting to drift away from the punk aesthetic and going into more, sell out metal stuff? What were they thinking about this time?
Well, I think I'd earned a little bit of, good faith over the years. But I mean, you have to realize who the metal crowd was in the mid, for the exposure that I had. You were into Korn or Limp Bizkit or Orgy. You were into Marilyn Manson. That was the world. I think I've told you multiple times, Woodstock 99 was the metal crowd to my punk friends. So, but you put on something like Carcass, right? Or you throw that on, it's totally different than their perception of what metal is, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to get into a pick, later on, but as they became listeners who also picked up instruments, that also changed their perception of, metal. They started to become more accomplished, musicians, and started to, more traditional forms of metal became part of their sort of vocabulary. So I didn't have a whole lot of pushback, but there were definitely times when I would put on a 8, 9, 10-minute long song and they're used to 30 seconds of spaz. It's just Jesus, it's not fair when we're trading songs, right? They can get through an entire album and I've got one song going. So
yeah,
we're stuck in the car together and we're driving up, I-5 and we're sharing albums. It's just a completely unfair comparison. So there was stuff like that where they would kind of roll their eyes. But I think at some level they drew the line. Some of the picks that we'll get on later, they're Jesus, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way I want to.
We can't hang out with you anymore.
Yeah, or just you've got to be kidding me. Are they really are doing this? This is the most ridiculous, over the top, But we'll get into that explanation later. So I just want to say there was that contrast, at least for me, in terms of that was the metal. It wasn't the thrash kids and the hardcore kids in 82, 83. It was a very different kind of conflict in terms of who made up metal. And I mean, I don't know about your perception. You can answer this question. I don't know what it was like for you in Germany, Jurgen, but in the 2000s, I felt there was also a shift in terms of a different kind of generation getting into the genre. But that was from someone who was on the outside sort of venturing in. I don't know for people who were immersed in it, if you felt there was an influx or a new interest, broadly speaking culturally, or it was just, happy you showed up to the party, 20 years later. I'm curious if you had that perception, or what was your impression?
I think here in Germany, it started to develop a little bit with the first Korn album. So what was it, 95, 96, something like that. There were a lot of new fans coming. Before that, until the mid 90s, it was always the same kind of group. Some new people coming, some older got families and they left. But the mishmash of hardcore and punk and metal people, it started way back in the early 80s, and I think Venom did a really, really good job. Just going back to the Venom stuff, because at the UK shows they did in the very early 80s, there were punks with mohawks, there were long hair, there were crust punks, there were just bikers, and it all mixed together. Here in Germany, we had a lot of US GIs that brought us new music, and they were very important back then for importing music here. And like I said, the transition started in mid to late 90s, when a lot of new people came in.
You can also say too that the mid 90s, early 2000s is when metal really started to get commercial. I mean, it started to achieve a commercial success. These little scrub festivals started to really show an influx of people coming to them. More festivals sprung up because of it. So Europe was kind of ground zero for the commercialization and growth of metal in a lot of ways. I would, from an outsider looking in, it's always been hard for American bands. We're just too big, touring. The clubs don't care, whereas bands are treated a little bit differently in Europe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? They got a little more commercial, a little bigger.
Mm-hmm. But we haven't had fights between the different fans. We had the Dynamo Festival in Holland, for example, and like I said, Venom were playing there, Slayer were playing there, Sabotage were playing there, Iron Maiden, Korn, Slipknot, also the new stuff, and Spiritual Beggars, the stoner rock stuff, all mixed together, and that was a melting point, so to say.
Right.
So we never had big fights. Not like in the US, like if you had long hair walking into CBGBs, for example, you got beaten up or something like that. We never had that.
Destruction went on tour with Cro-Mags, and there was nightly fights between the punk and the metal guys. Yep.
Yeah, back in 87, that was Yep.
Release from Agony era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Schmier told me that. Yeah.
Yep. All right, Kellen.
Okay, so on that note, I will also say this is a time period in my life where we started, partying, drinking, drugs, all that good stuff. So leftover crack. This is a band that follows Choking Victim, and people who know that band, a hardcore band from the States. But there's just like a weird sort of, they're like halfway a crust band, also a ska band. It was a good time. So if we would listen to this, we could party to it. And so this album closes with a Choking Victim cover of Born to Die, which is a song that we all could sort of sing the chorus together. And it just reminds me of the friends that I had at the time, and like all sorts of crazy debauchery, the good stuff that you have when you're 18, 19 years old. One of those records that will eternally live with a certain group of friends. And every time I listen to it, I think of them for sure.
I've never heard that one.
Do you know Choking Victim at all?
I've heard the name, but not the music.
Well, Leftover Crack is the dysfunctional ska crust version. I've heard them called squatcore. So, if you want to know what it was like to be a crusty person but have a good time, that's absolutely a band for you to check out.
All right. I'm kind of backtracking a little bit here because my stack is all out of whack. But there was a hot minute during the whole Metallica thing that this band came into my realm, and there was maybe a summer or two there where Metal Church, based on the greatness of this album when it came out, that Metal Church kind of beat Metallica out as my favorite band. They're very similar. Metal Church is a little more US power metal inspired, less thrashy, but man, when I heard this record for the first time, this record still gives me the chills at times. There's some stuff on this record that are great. I love the vibe of it. I love the songs on it. I love David Wayne's voice. This came along probably their thrashiest album, I guess. The songs are a little bit better, a little more fleshed out, a slicker production. Where they're on Elektra here. Yeah, they're on Elektra. This one here. Yeah, this was reissued on Elektra as well. But Watch the Children Pray was big on Headbangers Ball on MTV, blew them up. Yep, these two again were another one driving around. I finally had my first vehicle. I somehow managed to get a tape deck in it, and without it actually worked. When I did, I couldn't believe it. But these were two tapes that were constant rotation. I love these things, so good. Obviously, Blessing in Disguise came out with Mike Howe on vocals. I like it now. When it came out, Didn't like it. Was like, what the hell happened to this band? But this takes me back to the whole Metallica thing. These guys were kind of brothers style. I mean, they were in the same orbit with each other, played shows together. I know John Marshall was a guitar tech, filled in for James Hetfield when he got caught on fire or broke his hand skateboarding or something. I don't know. Either way, this stuff, these two are great. Again, these are kind of the soundtrack to my teenage years. Absolutely great.
Yeah, Metal Judge was pretty important over here as well, especially with The Dark.
The Dark, I mean, God, the track listing, what is it? Method to Your Madness, I think, is my favorite on here.
Start the Fire was the first song I heard.
Line of Death, what a great song. Dave Wayne's vocals were just so... I can't see him sustaining that vocal style. He's kind of like a Bon Scott, you know, really singing in that higher screechy register, or Brian Johnson style, I guess. There isn't a bad song on these. There isn't. Ton of Bricks, Start the Fire, great songs. Psycho.
That is one of the few albums I can accept the drum computer.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen Metal Church with David Wayne when they reunited for the Masterpiece album, I think it's called.
That album wasn't very good, was it?
No.
I checked it out online. I'm like, ooh, I don't need to get this.
And I was so excited to see them, and I left after, I don't know, 5 songs or something.
Did Wayne, was he just roached, completely voice gone, or?
Yeah, the voice was not good. The sound was not good. He was talking a lot of crap between the songs, so it wasn't good.
Right.
So okay, screw the chronological order. We are talking about transitional albums. I think this one is very, very important.
That's a good record.
The one before that had the hits.
Yep.
They were getting a little bit commercial, but on that one they said, "Screw you all," and they did what they wanted. Look at the back cover.
Yep.
How can you do that on a so-called commercial album?
Is that a Carcass B-side or single?
Oh, actually, the bass player had a Carcass shirt on in the video clip. Yeah.
Billy Gould. Yep.
Yeah. So, Faith No More, and what even makes that record better for me, I loved it when it came out because it was so over the top. After they released the album, they played a concert, and that was so fucking great. One of the best shows I've ever seen. And on that night, there was another show in the same area was announced by a band called Scatterbrain. You remember them?
Yeah, they were Ludacris members.
Ex-Ludacris. Yep. And I decided, should I go to the Faith No More concert or the Scatterbrain concert?
I think you picked the right one. I used to have that Here Comes Trouble on cassette. I might still have it. It's fun. It's a fun, goofy record.
Yeah, it is. Don't Call Me Dude.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the song on that?
Yeah.
So I decided to go to Faith No More, and the actual support band canceled, so they had Scatterbrain.
Perfect.
So I saw both.
Yes, it solved itself.
Yeah, but
yep.
But just a perfect record for me, and it's the original version that came without the Elton John cover.
Ah, nice.
That makes the record even better.
Right. I saw them open for Soundgarden and Voivod back in the day on the Real Thing tour. Before they blew up crazy big. Yep.
I wanted to see that show as well because in Germany they played headliner shows for the Real Thing, and Prong was opening up, but I missed that.
Yep. Prong is still a thing. I watched like 5 minutes of a set they did here recently man, it's not. It hasn't. That's a '90s band that hasn't really held up well for me.
You think so? I still love the
Really?
old stuff.
They're very
I still
90s
do.
sounding. Yep, I like Cleansing. That's a good. That's the last album of theirs I really cared about. But,
Oh, I still love that shit.
huh? I'll have to check it out because yeah, watching them live, I'm like, ooh, this isn't holding up all that well for me.
It's like an era of metal and that I have never been able to get into. Like that very specific sort of transition period in the early 90s. I just never clicked with me. I don't know if it's just I need to make consistent attempts at it or what it is, but it's just an odd time period.
Yep.
But
Okay.
from watching your videos, you like a little bit odd music.
Yes.
You may not like the real thing, but you might like
Okay.
Angel Dust.
King for a Day is pretty good too. I have that one as well. It's not bad.
Yes. Yeah, but it's a little bit too normal.
Mm-hmm.
This record is really fucked up.
It is.
Okay. So speaking of like things that my friends kind of rolled their eyes at, you've got to be kidding me. This is so ridiculous.
What happened to you, Kevin?
We're just like, how can you take this seriously? So this is I remember picking up and just like, you look at like looking at the whole the makeup and what's the guys the count and they got their fake names, like what the hell is this? It was just like they dug the part of black metal. I'll get into like me actually listening to the record in a second, but just it was one of those like the whole presentation and theater that has to go with second wave black metal. I'll never forget picking this up. Remember it was at a store in Portland. I was with my parents of all things, like during Christmas, whatever. And I picked up this Mayhem record. I vividly remember being like, I should be shopping for my sister, but I'm going to be picking up this Mayhem record instead. But yeah, just it was one of those things like, what's the band's name? And they're at this point, this is the 2000s, so all the publicity regarding the second wave, all the drama and stuff like that was well known. So they just thought it was ridiculous. But a completely different sound. Just the way they were writing songs and everything. Like, I don't need to go over what made this time period in Norwegian black metal special. I think that's already established, right? But
it was special. It just was.
It totally was. And same sort of deal, like this time period where the extremity of music I'm braced for. I can deal with like the intensity, the distortion, the pacing, so on and so forth. But like all the different superlatives that metal introduces in a different kind of songwriting style, like the first time you get a chance to hear that is something that is for everyone, I think, unique and meaningful. So putting this on and it now, even for me, like 20 some years later, it's still like I have those early memories of this time period in my life. And this is the band and this record. I rarely will pull this one out. I like Order Out KO. That's my favorite Mayhem record. But the sort of all the hype and appeal that this initially brought into my sort of music listening, like, I don't want to, avoid that. It bears worth mentioning. So for sure.
If you like Attila's vocals, you'll like Nivik Ogre from Skinny Puppy. You can tell very inspired by Ogre. He had a band called Plasma Pool. It's a industrial band, a little dancier than Skinny Puppy, but hearing him sing the way he sings on that, it's very Skinny Puppy based. So yeah, along with Tormentor, he had Plasma Pool. I have 2 CDs by that, a live one and then a studio one. And so yeah, when that album and the split with Enslaved by Emperor and Enslaved were the first Norwegian black metal albums I bought. I bought them at the same time on CD from Century Media here in the U.S. And I loved them, man. I love them. And I prefer Attila over Dead. Everybody's like Dead, 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 but I don't know. Attila just had more. It was just more bonkers. It was just a very odd choice to replace Dead with a guy that was very much a skinny puppy freak. It's just, granted, it was because of Tormentor, but anyway, we're rambling here.
I've seen Tormentor playing a show here in Germany 5 years ago, something like that, and I didn't expect anything, and it was awesome.
Really?
Trust me, it was mind-breaking.
he used to come out with like crab claws and all this goofy stuff back in the day to have all this crap he'd put on, and he's
not with Tormentor. He had a battle jacket on.
I think back in the day he used to wear all these weird costumes and shit back then. Yeah.
You know, just a little story before you go on.
Yeah.
You know why I chose this? A friend of mine got the CD when it came out on Death Like Silence Productions, and he phoned me up, said I've got the Mayhem album, and I went over to him with a tape. I just want to get a copy of it. We put in the tape. It was already some music on it, and we cued it back. And you remember the counters on the tape decks with the 3 numbers, and we cued it back, and it stopped at 666.
So then you wrote a song about cheesecake and chocolate just to cleanse the room, and and everything was better after that. That's hilarious, man.
So yeah, that's why I put that one up.
Nice.
It's your turn.
It's my turn. Okay. I'm just showing this because I love it. I know this isn't Jurgen's favorite of theirs, which I don't know if I'm surprised or not, but hurts my heart a little bit. But man, this Extreme Aggression, I'm sorry. Pleasure to Kill. Terrible Certainty is very much a transition record for me. I loved it when it came out, but it hasn't held up as much as this, Flag of Hate, and Pleasure to Kill. And the first one is fun. Yep, Jurgen's got it too. But this came out in '89, the year I graduated high school. This dropped. I picked it up at Camelot on tape. I looked at how stupid the cover was. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But this album completely killed me. I love this record even to this day. The songs are perfect. This is Creator moving out of the super raw, crazy, dark, and just kind of getting more social, political, but the songs are so sharp, well written. Milla's vocals are perfect. A lot of people prefer Coma of Souls after this, which that to me started to sound tired. I like the record. It's just tired sounding compared to this. It's hard to follow up a record like this. It just is. It's hard to follow up a record like Pleasure to Kill. And Terrible Certainty has its moments, but it isn't. It's just not either of the records that bookend it. But this is the soundtrack to my senior year of high school, 100%. And I put it on, and I'm transported back to those times for sure. I'm about to go out and get my own job, away from the family business. Got my own vehicle. I'm graduating high school, and this is follow me around on cassette in every. And as soon as I started buying, I got a CD player. This was one of the first CDs I bought because it's such a classic. Love it. And Alan picked this up for me for my birthday. It's a noise pressing, OG pressing. Thank you again, Alan. I don't want to know what he paid for this.
Does that go along with being the co-host now? Am I on the clock for OG
we're trying. Yeah, we'll see what kind of gifts I get. If they're not good enough, then we'll pass this on down to somebody else. But we'll just see. This is just a test period. We'll see. We'll see if your steal is true or not. Okay. Jurgen. Oh my God, Simon! I had to come down there. If you didn't have brain worms and snakes on your roof, I'd come down there and teach you a lesson for those words. Anyway.
Yeah. That's also my favorite Creator album.
Oh, it is. Oh, who else was telling
Yeah.
me that? I watched a video that they didn't like it as much as the rest. I'm like, oh my god. Anyway,
it's not my favorite German thrash metal album, but still my favorite Creator. When that one came out, I was 14 years old, and they actually played my hometown on that tour.
nice.
And we had the whole town covered with that image. All the tour posters.
Wow, nice.
The record shops had the covers all over it, and posters and stuff like that. And I asked my parents, "Can I go?" And they said, "No, you're 14 years old. You're not going anywhere." So the older brother of a friend of mine said, "I'm gonna take care of the kids," and that was actually my first show with Raven opening up for Creator.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, there were around maybe 250 people, something like that.
Wow. And Rick, I do want to say, great Creator album, but man, oh man, the cover would have killed him to get it. There actually was an actual painting of that cover, of an album cover that they wanted for it, and it sucked. I didn't like it. It's like their mascot looking in the mirror, cutting himself or whatever. It's not a great cover. So Walter Bach was notorious for switching covers on bands at the last minute, like Rage. The Secrets in a Weird World had a very cool cover, but it ended up being a picture, the promo shot of the band. Oh, Jurgen's got the cover somewhere. He's going to show it to us.
I think so.
Everybody check out that sweet Heavy Metallurgy swag he's being bothered by right now. You should all go down the link in the description, buy yourself a t-shirt. That'd be great. And if you did order a shirt and you're waiting for it, I kind of took this week off. I have been a lazy turd this week, so I plan on getting all that stuff packaged up and out next week. So thank you for being patient. Jurgen's going to show us the OG cover of that that was proposed for that Extreme Aggression album, and it's not.
I don't know if it's in there.
I remember it being. Is it in the box set? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
I could probably look it up online here. OG Extreme Aggression cover.
No, it's not in there. Yeah, it sucked. But I ended up liking the cover because it's different for the time.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Oh, here it is. See if I can. Oh, that's pretty tiny. I don't know if that'll work or not. Yep. Okay. Here, I'm going to pull this up real quick. Sorry, everybody. It takes a second to click all the buttons that make this work, and technology for the elderly. Here we go. Oops. Thanks, ads. There we go. Does that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the OG cover. Which I guess it isn't as bad as I thought it was, but I still don't like it. It's still kind of stupid. Yeah.
They had a little bit of that image they had as a tour shirt.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, wait. Yeah. Is it Kellen's turn? I think it's Kellen's turn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. After that brief corporate sponsor there, you're welcome.
Right? Yeah, we're not yet. We hit 5,000. There's going to start being ads on here, people. So get ready for it.
Get ready. Okay. Back here to a little bit more of the sludgy punk stuff for me. So this is a band from North Carolina, near and dear to my heart, called Face Down. We're 2 hours in. Face Down and Shit. Yep. Man, so there's really this is a compilation. They never actually put outside of that comp a song called Cinders outside of this release on a split. And let's pull this out here. This is the one time we actually I needed to get this one song on a record. Cool little cover there. But we lived at the time, my group of the guys that I was living with, we had there's I guess three. Technically, there's three of us, but like at this point in your life, when your friends are just kind of crashing on your house, and sleeping on the couch, whatever, it's that like really cool time period in your life. But we lived really close to campus, and so sure enough, like people would just walk through the street and like walk into your home and want to party, whatever. And playing Cinders for us was like the test. Either you were going to like dig this song and hang out with us and party the rest of the night, or you were gonna like this is gonna be not something you were into and you weren't our people and you can leave kind of deal. So it was sort of the one song that we used to clear the room, and during the course of the night would be like our sort of personal song that everyone else in the house knew. It starts like an 8-minute long song, and it starts at this really slow, heavy, almost like a doom, and there's some violins. By the end, it kicks into something like up-tempo and sludgy, thrashy kind of stuff. But it's like the song that epitomizes a very specific time period in my life. And once again, just kind of like some of the other records I'll be showing here are connected to like a core group of friends that are immortalized. So yeah.
Right on. Okay. Let me see here where I'm at. I think I'm in a good spot here. Okay. Well, one thing about living in northern Michigan, during the formative years of myself, where I'm starting to get into this metal stuff, I don't know anything about tape trading because I'm new to the scene. I don't know anything about zines that much because I'm so far north. I would hear about shows after they happen. It was a notorious thing. It sucked. Graduated high school 1990. I think this happens. This happened on August 11th, 1990 in the Jackson Optimus Ice Arena, Jackson, Michigan, which is a prison town here in Michigan. The first show I went to, I was a big Sacrifice fan. My buddy said, "Oh, there's this Death Fest happening down there. Sacrifice is playing it." Cool. Sacrifice is the only band on the bill that I had heard. This is the first show I ever went to. If anybody that was in the chat that was there for that show, it was very kind of scary because there was a religious group that showed up to protest the show. They had a giant wooden cross. They had bullhorns. They were singing songs. And of course, all the metalheads were screaming, "Fuck you, Satan, Satan, Satan," chants and stuff. Then the cops came and were keeping the religious people back from the Satanists because they were afraid there was going to be a riot, because that was kind of how it was fleshing out. My first show, mind you, it was a little weird. Cops are there and I'm like, what is going on here? I just recently got this tape, and I had never heard this album. The first two Sacrifice albums I loved. I was there to see this band, and the bands that played there. Okay, let's start. The only band that I don't own anything by that played was Ex Mortis, and I don't know if they were even there or if I just got in late. But one of the first bands that played, Lucifer's Hammer. This is the Burning Churches demo. This was the lady that put the show on. They called her Metal Mom. Her name was Sandy Newton. She was a Michigan promoter. She lived up here for a while. Nice lady. Did a lot of death fests over the years. This was her son Todd's band. Really, really cool blackish doom metal. Very much a staple, important band in the Michigan scene. Ties to bands like Masochist, all that stuff. So they played, kind of eye-opening. Here's another band that played this show that was another huge Michigan band, Fatal. This is the Soul Burning Still, a Fatal. This is their entire discography. A great Michigan death metal band early. It's too bad these guys didn't stick it out because they were really good. First time I ever saw this band, Deceased. Luck of the Corpse era, very energetic. King was still on drums at that point, singing it on drums. Buffalo, New York. They had Baphomet. They played it. The Dead Shall Inherit. And this, from not really knowing what the hell I was seeing, this was absolutely ridiculous. The singer just went nuts, headbanging. He was headbanging so hard at the end of the song, his head was beat red. And another band that I never heard of that played this thing, Nuclear Death. Totally great. Lori Bravo, is that her name? Yep, Lori Bravo. She was only 3 apples tall, had a V bass, and had a Tupperware cup filled with red fluid, and she dipped a maxi pad in, and it's like, women bleed, and she threw it out into the crowd, and people are trying to catch it. Again, this is the most extreme shit I had ever seen. I'm here to see Sacrifice, okay? And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? Sacrifice came out and played shortly after this, and I'm like, man, this material, they played mostly stuff off of Soldiers of Misfortune, which very Metallica based. And I'm watching them going, this is kind of boring. They're kind of the odd band out at this thing. The changing of the guard. It was never more evident than this show. And then after them, they played so long that the people turned the lights off on them because they wouldn't stop playing. And then, of course, this band came out during this era. Morbid Angel, the Altars of Madness era. These guys blew my dick off. Sorry. It was, they had so much smoke. They filled this hockey arena with smoke. You could hardly even see Dave Vincent. They had 2 little upside down cross monuments. He was out front with the spotlights on him. You couldn't see the rest of the band. There was so much smoke, but they were so awesome. Say what you want. I know King has got nothing good to say about these guys, which behind the scenes, I don't know. I don't know shit about it. I don't care, but man, I went out shortly thereafter and bought this. And this is another thing. Back then, there was no cell phones. I had a real camera that I maybe took a few blurry pictures with. I don't even have those pictures anymore. But what I came away with was a bunch of memories. I did not hold up my phone and film the whole thing. I went out. I took my flyer from the event and I went out and I bought albums by every band that played demos, at this thing. That was just kind of what you did. The culture has changed. People are still buying stuff. I'm not saying they're not, but you go to a show and it's just weird. People just can't be in the moment anymore. You're standing there. Everybody's got their fucking camera up. They're making content for their channel. I mean, I have a channel too. At Halloween, I took a few pictures. I shot a little bit of video just to say I was there. But I mean, it wasn't like the whole thing. It was just kind of like, my kid's there with me. So it was a big deal. And this was my first show. And it was a humongous impression. And it made me realize all the stuff I miss living up in the northern part of Michigan. Don't get me wrong. I love living where I live. I wouldn't change it. I could have moved over the years and I never did. But this really unlocked heavier music for me. And I saw it in where it was supposed to be witnessed, in a live medium, where it was like right in your face. You're right up on the stage watching these people freak out, super heavy music. It made an impression, and it was a lasting impression. It was an impression that was probably just as important as Kiss. It got me, I got my head around the more extreme stuff. And moving forward, as we're going to see here from what's going on with these piles, it gets a lot more heavy. It was a big deal. A humongous show in my life for sure.
I was going to say, we've talked a little bit about like the record nostalgia, but I do also like want to say, I do find it's difficult in the same way people chase the nostalgia that they have a specific record. I don't know how often you go to a live show and you it's also, there's like that obstacle in terms of you've gone to so many over the years, you've seen so many. It's hard to get that, whatever you're experiencing this for the first time at that show, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult to sort of, how often do you go to a show now and you have that kind of experience, right?
The thing of it is, living up here in northern Michigan, in Traverse City, it's not a big city. There's not, there's crime now, but going downstate, it was scary. We me and Scott, we just got our driver's licenses. We're going from driving up here, which is pretty easy, to into the city. Jackson isn't bad. I'll get into my next story here. I have a couple things here to get me into the next story, but it wasn't bad until we went to Detroit. Going to Detroit for the first time, we were terrified. We thought we were going to die. I mean, that you add that whole thing to the whole show experience. It's like it still stay. When I go down to Detroit now, I still think back to that time. Like, there was a time I was terrified to come down here, and now I'm just taking my kid down here. It's just, you build yourself up to it. It's like all these little bit of growth. You get a little bit of freedom. And my parents didn't want me to go to this show. They didn't want me to go to Detroit. They didn't want me to leave town. They're like, don't go. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get mugged. You're going to lose your car, all this stuff. Didn't happen. You just got to pay attention. But it's still a big deal. It was a big deal for a Northern Michigan kid to enter into the big crazy cities, and actually see this heavy, extreme, crazy music where people are slam dancing and freaking out. I never seen that shit. It was Harpo's is rough. Yes. Yeah. A lot of skinheads there too. Every time I've been there, there's been skinheads. Anyway, that's another story. But yeah. Who's next? Jurgen, I'm going to go pee while you talk.
Yeah. So talking about shows in Europe, we live pretty protected over here. So we didn't have, now we have, we didn't have parts of cities where you don't want to go. So, like I said, pretty protected. But at the shows itself, it could get quite dangerous. That has to do with the GIs that were stationed over here back then, because they were getting drunk. And a lot of times during the 80s, we had the military police coming in with, what are they called?
Baton? Yeah, baton.
Yeah, and they were beating up their own drunk people and drag them out. So over the years, the danger during a show, it disappeared. That's why I stopped going to concerts 4 years ago, something like that. So and it's not as impressional as it was back then. And it's just like you go to a show to just see what you have seen many times before. So
yeah, I mean, I know you were talking about going to see a Venom show and having that get underneath your skin prior to the 20-minute bass solo, but
yeah. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, I've played so many shows over the years myself, and I think I have seen everything that I wanted to see over the years, over the decades. So it's not interesting for me. One of my favorite thrash metal bands is Overkill.
Well, yeah.
And I went to their tour they did a couple of years ago. It didn't do anything for me because I've seen them 15 or 20 times already. So live shows have lost the magic for me. So
I still like going to them though. I know what you're saying. You've been to a lot more shows than I have. Granted, when I was writing during the writing years, I stepped up that number a lot, and I still like going to them. But I get where you're coming from. I understand. Anyway.
So you got a question, Kellen?
No, I was gonna say, like, the follow-up question I had for you, then we can talk about this. I don't want to get too sidetracked here. Is like, do you feel that you find you're able to sort of rediscover or get caught up with nostalgia much more now listening at home than you actually do in a live venue? Like, I'll never take back that time period in my life where I'm like, whatever, 16 to 24, going out to shows and like the impression it made. But I don't have, like, at this point, I don't have the same kind of relationship to a live experience. Like, it's great, and I still want to go out, but it's just totally different than when I was much younger and living a very different life. So
Actually, I'm not a very nostalgic person. I've got a lot of memories, and I like to share my memories, but I don't idolize them. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I don't shed a tear for back in the 80s or 90s. It was much better. I'm a pretty forward-looking guy. I don't know.
Okay.
So now, as you're back, Marty, I'm gonna shed a little light on that one. So,
Yep,
the Violation album. I think
good record.
that is the version you have.
Yep, I have the promo sleeve of it. Yep, the exact same one.
Yeah.
Yep, I was friends with Pat. Friends. I mean, he hooked me up during the zine era. Yep.
The extra color.
People show. Yep, that was color. It was an actual color cover. Yep.
Yeah, and that is the back picture. There's me over there.
Yep.
And I didn't sing on the record, but I was there when another shot of me. Look how evil I am.
I'm so evil, I did not even sing on this record. Too evil to be on this record.
Yeah.
I'm holding a sweet Twix bar in this hand. Shout out to my roots.
The album was recorded at Abyss Studios with Tommy Tagren, so Peter's brother.
Yep.
And I was friends with them for a long time. And we went to Wacken Open Air. Their sound guy and me went to Wacken Open Air, and the last night we drank a lot, and we said, okay, we are already halfway through to Sweden, so let's go over there and visit them in the studio. So it was a surprise. So we went over to Peter's little town, because there's only Peter living there.
I'm not great with geography, but you have to get on a ferry. You have to pull the car into a ferry and go across the lake.
Yeah, you have to go on a ferry 2 times here.
Yeah, okay.
Germany, Denmark, and then Denmark, Sweden.
Ah, right on.
Yeah, but we were halfway there, so we said, okay, we're not going home after Wacken Open Air. We're going to Ludvika. That is the town.
Yep.
Oh, the town is called Parabli. Parabli? Yeah. So we went over there, knocked on the door, and said, "Okay, here we are. we've got beer. We've got weed."
Yep.
So yeah, that was my first visit to Sweden. And like I said, I was not in the band when they recorded it, but I joined the band before the album was released.
Ah.
On the other hand, I was in a band called Soul Demise.
I need to check that stuff out. I have not gotten around to getting that yet.
We recorded the album Beyond Human Perception that came out right with the Violation album. I sang on it. It was recorded in Sweden as well. But there is no picture of me on the back. So I sang on that album, no picture on me. On the Violation album, there's a picture of me, but I didn't sing on that. And the album came out during the same time. And even
were the photo shoots on the same day, and you end up showing up to the other one and not that one?
Something like that, yeah.
You got all confused, yeah.
Even the album artwork, it was the same guy.
Oh, okay, right on. Yep. Well, that Violation, anybody that likes the Melodeath sound, the Gothenburg style, that album is kind of in that vein. I thought when it came out, I thought, no, this is okay, but I've been listening to it again, thinking Jurgen sang on it, and I like it a lot more than I did back then. It's like that during that era when that came out, there was so much of that stuff. It burnt me out so bad. It could have been the best thing in the world. And I just did not want to hear it. I was so burnt out on it. That was the problem with doing a zine or writing for a bigger magazine. You were so crammed with so much stuff. Everybody's like, "Oh, boo-hoo." Well, it's a lot to you start to get jaded on all the crap you hear. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jurgen.
A good comparison might be the first couple of albums from Amon Amarth. And when we did the release show, we actually played with Amon Amarth on the release show for the album. Yeah.
How did that go?
We were friends back then. I don't have any contact with them anymore, but back then we were friends.
Yeah. And also the last band that Jurgen was in, people go check out the band Repent. Pretty good. It's really good thrash stuff, actually.
Yeah, if they have another singer now, they are better now.
Yep. Who knows who's on the picture of that? Jurgen might be on the new one, although he doesn't sing on it. It's hard to say. Hard to keep up with this guy's photo shoot sessions. He just didn't have a good calendar back then, apparently. All right. Kellen.
Okay, well, this got a little bit of love last week on Heavy Metallurgy, and it's been talked about plenty, but I mentioned earlier how some of my friends who actually became musicians did part of their appeal or interest in some of my metal records was the musicianship. And my good friend, shout out to Marcus, he loved this record, and he was a guitarist, also played bass, but he brought it out and was like, you got to listen to the songs they're playing on this is exceptional. So yeah, rest in peace. It's the guitarist record. I don't want to go too far into this because I know we spent some time talking about it last week on 1990, but
the album rules. I love it.
Yeah, it's a classic record. What got me was the intro to Take No Prisoners. That shift, they start off the bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum, but when it goes into double, like they double time it and it gets much faster and it picks up that sort of like syncopated sort of spider stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
I'd never like that kind of riffing was classic. Anyway, it was for one of those records that we shared. So anytime that he wanted to listen to a heavy metal record, it was usually thrash. That's what he picked up, and that was the one thrash record that specifically he always wished he could play like. So just wanted to bring that as a note to kind of put a bow on the conversation.
Everybody, I've been having a hard time keeping up with the conversation and the chat tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm doing my best here. Alan usually, when I'm talking, fills in the gaps and shows your comments, and he's not here. And we need to give Kellen, depending on his gifts, we need to give Kellen access to the keys to the kingdom here.
Sure, I just need to raid Jurgen's record collection somehow. And then send it over to Marty. We'll see how that works.
Yeah. Oh, shut. All right. I'm next. Okay. So yeah, as I was stating in my last long ass rant, that Michigan Death Fest 1 in 1990 was huge in my development in wanting to consume bigger things. And I did not grab the tape, but there was shortly after that show, we went down to Grand Rapids. Now there's a shop down there called Vertigo. The guy that owns Vertigo used to own a store down there called Vinyl Solution, which we would go down there all the time. It was amazing. Upstairs was tapes and CDs. Downstairs was vinyl. Well, shortly after that show in Jackson, I had to get the heavier stuff. So I bought all these at the same time. One of them things I bought was Recapitulafaction on cassette. I got this, of course, because I saw them. I picked up this record for $6.99 new. I got this record brand new for $6.99. This is the OG press. It's got the sticker wrote right on the album. Man, I bought this record mainly because of the logo and the album cover. I didn't know shit about this band. They look cool in the photo, all looking tough. Bunch of tough 16-year-olds. And of course, I knew I was buying a Carcass. I knew some of these bands on here. Morbid Angel was on this comp. And if you get the vinyl of this, there's only a few songs. It isn't the It ended up being out on tape. I have a tape version of this, like triple the song length, and the CD's got even more. And if you got Jurgen's copy, it's got the 7-inch with it. Mine did not come with the 7-inch, which is odd. But where was I going with this? This album, wow. You want to talk about set you on your ass type of the sound. The first song, Left Hand Path, the outro to that song is probably one of the most iconic outros ever. The fade, the slow fade with that buzzsaw guitar and that harmony. Oh my God. To this day, one of my favorites. And this was a very, this album here, no understating this. I mean, Filthy Christians, I had to get everything by one of the bands on here. You had Morbid Angel, Repulsion, Radiation Sickness, Carcass, Exhumed to Consume, which is a different version that's on the album. Godflesh, Street Cleaner, Napalm Death, The Missing Link, Terrorizer, Dead Shall Rise. That album ended up being one of my all-time favorites. Bolt Thrower, Through the Eye of Terror, Intense Degree, and Filthy Christians. So it's an abbreviated thing, but this was what, Mosh 12. This is only the 12th Eric release. Still a lot of punk on this stuff. And even the grind, Carcass, they ended up being way more death metal. There's a lot of punk in that too. This is just a very instrumental in my dive into heavier music. And being already kind of a punk and hardcore fan, it fit. It felt right. There's no punk. Well, there's a little bit of the Stockholm sound had a bit of a punk vibe to it, but this is just absolutely crushing. This thing here got endless plays. I just could not believe. And then come to find out I had to buy it again because the CD had 2 bonus tracks. So fuck me, right? This was a very good trip to Grand Rapids, and it was a very big developmental jump in my love for extreme metal. All thanks to that show in 1990 in Jackson, Michigan. For sure. Who's next? Jurgen.
So you were talking about that one.
That one.
Early 90s death metal started to change with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got
the
Dismember debut.
Everybody called those 2 bands copycat bands, but man,
they were different.
I think if I'm going to pull either one of those records, I'm probably going to pull the Dismember record to listen to. What do you think? It's just more savage. It's less refined. It's the same guitar tone, just nastier. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But the riffs are different. Dismember was a little bit as ferocious as they were. They were a little bit more melodic, and they didn't have the punk influences that Left Hand Path had.
They had more Maiden influence than punk influence.
Yeah, dual guitars, stuff like that. Yep. And then we got that one.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a little bit different because they had the Swedish sound, but this one was recorded in Germany.
It doesn't have the sound is a little looser. It's a little more, I don't know, loose is the only way I can really say it. It's more live sounding. Wouldn't you agree? Maybe a little more of a live sound.
I think it's more breathing. The Unleashed debut was recorded in a big studio with a big recording hall, and the other stuff that was recorded at Sunlight Studios was a really tiny studio, and they had small amps in a tiny room.
And the drum set was a D drum. It was a fake kit. Yep.
Yes.
Which when I heard that, it blew my fucking mind. I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But you know what? The very first album in Sunlight Studios they recorded with real drums was that one.
Oh yeah, I love that early Grave. I love them up through Soulless.
Oh yeah. And what even makes that better? 15 years after all that shit was released, I got a call from an agency and I went on tour with all these 4 bands.
Yep.
So almost a whole month here in Europe.
You were doing their merch, weren't you? And drinking them
Yeah.
under the table.
Yeah.
Showing those Swedish boys how to properly drink.
Yeah, and the first show was in Holland, so I bought a lot of weed.
Enough to get you through a month worth of touring, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
That was a really, really funny tour. I just recently told that little story to Mark G. On the first night, I spoke to Marty from Dismember, and he told me, "You're gonna do the merch." He was really, really serious and focused, and he said, "You always care about the money. You always know where your wallet is." And during that first night, the very first night of the tour, Marty got so drunk we had to carry him to the bus.
And he lost his wallet.
Yes. And after a couple of hours, he woke up and the first thing he was searching all over him and said, "Where's my wallet?"
Yep.
Yeah. I had lots of fun with these guys, and I'm still in loose contact with a couple of these people. Anders, the drummer for Unleashed, he is such a maniac. He had a heart attack about 20 years ago, and he does not slow down.
Wow.
Not a little bit.
It held it, huh? Going full blast.
Yeah.
Yep. Go till you can't go no more.
Yeah. Just for fun, because he doesn't work. He went on tour with Impaled Nazarene as a drum roadie, and he didn't get paid for it. Just for fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
They mentioned Grave there when we were writing for Cemetery Paths. The second full song on the album. If you listen to the beginning of it, I was listening to a lot of Soulless at the time, so that a lot of that kind of gleaned off into the riffs I wrote for that song. So you might hear it now that I said it. When you go to listen to it, you might hear it. All right.
When I was on the tour bus with them, I had my Trouble DVD with me, just for spending the nights. And the Trouble DVD is live in Stockholm, and all the guys who are sitting in front of the TV looking closely. Look, there I am. I was at the show. There I am.
Yep. Crazy. Small scene, really. I mean,
yeah, small scene. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems so much bigger now, but back then, wow.
I asked the guys how they came up with asking me to do the merchandise. A month before that, I was on tour with Necrophobic. They are also from Stockholm.
Yep.
And they liked me so much, and they said, "You're gonna go on tour next month on the Masters of Death tour. Ask that guy."
Nice. Yeah. Yep. You do a good job. That's just it, kids. Not that we have anybody young in this, but do a good job, and your name will get passed down the line for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kellen.
All right. This one, smaller band here, making the transition from my Megadeth pick. So this is a band from Vancouver, I believe. And they are called Poser Disposer. This is Waiting to Inhale. I mean, you can get what they're about. Like, they've got Wolfpack, Nausea, Assuck there on the back.
That's cool.
So you know what they're about. But just a tremendous dual vocal sort of attack here. The guy sitting with the hat with the glasses over here, he has one of the most unruly, wild, sort of like, he carries the higher pitches here, but you can completely like believe that voice is just, crushing the rest of him trying to get it out, because he's such a smaller dude by comparison to the other two guys. But when I see them live, they're from being on the West Coast, got a chance to see them. super cool band. But if you love like the bands that we mentioned there, the Asa, Wolfpack, Nausea, check out
All
Poser
those bands
Disposer.
rule. All those bands rule.
Bands rule, and this so fucking cool. So anyway, Poser Disposer.
All right. Shortly after the 1990 Death Fest, going to Grand Rapids, it was the same year, 1990. I went to see one of my favorite bands at the time in Detroit. The first time ever going to Detroit. Went to see Voivod on the Nothing Face tour. Leading up to this show, the people I worked with, oh, you're going to get mugged, you're going to get robbed, you're going to get lost, you're going to get killed. My parents, don't go, you're going to get mobbed, you're going to get killed, you're going to get your car stolen. Me and my friend Scott on the way down were so terrified to go to Detroit. The people up here had us so worked up. We're like, oh, every rest stop, you got to stop. Yeah, we stopped to pee, nervous pee the whole way down. We're going to die, we're going to get killed, we're going to get murdered, our shit's going to get stolen. This is at St. Andrews Hall, and it was Faith No More opened, Soundgarden was second, which I did not hear Soundgarden until the show. I bought this disc after seeing them because they were really, actually the band of the night, I hate to say it. And we couldn't find a place to park around St. Andrews, so we had to park a ways from it. I don't know where the hell it was. It was some parking lot. We parked. We had to walk up through these underpasses. We hear like this car alarm going off. We look to our right. There's 4 dudes trying to roll a car that's over. They're like trying to rocking it back and forth, trying to flip the car over. And we're like, we're going to die. It's true. We're going to die. We made it to the venue. We went in. It was fine. The show was great. Faith No More. They're silly. I didn't care much. I was there to see Voivod. Soundgarden came off and blew the roof off the place. They were amazing. Heavy as hell. They were so good. Wow. just I was sitting by the bar. This girl's like, will you lift me up on the bar? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I picked her up, put her on the bar, and that was cool. Watched the set with her, and afterwards Voivod came out. The place cleared out like a sinking ship, drowning rats leaving a sinking ship. There was 15, 20 people maybe for Voivod. But they were great too. They came up. I mean, Voivod has always suffered over the years with the bands they go on tour with. They go with these weird bills just to go out and play. They don't care. They have a punk aesthetic to them. I'm having memory. That's what the show is about. Memories, nostalgia, man. They've never really been on the right bill, it seems like. But this was a weird one for them. But it was amazing to see them. They blew me away. They were amazing. These guys owned the night. They were just absolutely devastating. There's just the music. This music was more geared towards devastation live. This is more of a cerebral, you got to be a fan type of thing. You're not winning a Soundgarden crowd over. And I can't imagine why they were headlining that. It just doesn't make any damn sense. But this was my second show ever. We survived Detroit. It was fine. We're driving home thinking, wow, that wasn't as bad. Everybody had us so fucking worked up. It was so stupid. But, I'm not even going to get into Harpo's. Barry's talking about Harpo. I've been to Harpo's a bunch. I've seen some amazing shows at Harpo's, and it is a terrifying place. It's like a demilitarized zone there. It's ridiculous. I got one more show thing to go through on my next turnaround. We're going all nostalgia tonight. Jurgen, you're back.
So I like the title of that Poser Disposer album, Waiting to Inhale. So I think we have to hurry up a little bit because I'm waiting to inhale. Just kidding.
I think that's the oven coil, like for the stove.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Either way, it's a shitty cover.
Yeah.
You have not seen that. Okay, leaving the metal genre a little bit and going back to my mid-teens, maybe 15, 16 years old. A very, very important band. New Model Army. These two records, No Rest for the Wicked and Purity, front to back, both of them are classics to me. I really, really love that. You call them indie, they've got a little bit of punk rock, a little bit melancholic. Just such great records. My girlfriend back then turned me on to them, and they never left the collection, and they never will. So, being 16 years old, my girlfriend back then was a little bit older. She had a driver's license. We can drive a car here in Germany when we are 18. So I was, 16, something like that. She was 18. She had a driver's license. And we were driving around and listening to these awesome records. Do you have any connection to a New Model Army?
I've got one tape of theirs that Pat from Ground Zero Salem sent me. And of course, Anna Crucis did I Love the World cover on Manic Impressions. Yep.
And the funny thing was, New Model Army played our hometown, but my girlfriend back then had to work the late shift. So I went, she didn't. Shortly afterwards, we broke up.
You still have the music to remember her by, though.
Yeah, we are still in contact. 30 years later, we are still in contact.
Right on.
Everything's good.
Cool. All right, Kellen.
Okay, so how many do you guys have left?
I've got a bunch of stuff. I could wrap it up here soonish, but
Okay, well, it's all good.
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't want to get you in trouble with the missus.
Okay, well, on that note, I'm wearing a House of Records shirt here. So this is back in Eugene, Oregon. This is the local record spot that whatever I used to go buy stuff at. And I was curious to pick up this album, but I was for the first time a little bit ashamed to ask for it because they needed to hunt it down at the time and I couldn't get a hold of it. So this is, speaking of album names and album titles, this is Clit Eater. And if you check out that album artwork, Marty, if you want to show up your Scream Bloody Gore, this is...
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that until now. Nice. Yeah.
Yes. So...
What's next, Kellen? Goblin cock?
Okay, hold up. So I go to I'm like, okay, so the reason I'm interested in this band to begin with is the vocalist from Inhume is part of this project, and so I liked Inhume. I wanted to check this out, and
you see why he has a shot. He always saves all this filth and garbage for heavy metallurgy, and he keeps all the highfalutin cerebral stuff for his channel.
Sure. Okay.
Here's Clit Eater. Here's bathtub shitter. Here's
all it's like all spoof stuff, right? So I think it's like Clit 'em All was the first record. So this is Scream Bloody Clit. Anyway, and this I'm like in line to talk to Martha and Greg are the owners of the store, and I get up there and it's like and behind me is like this mother who's trying to buy something for her son for like a gift, and so I get to the counter and I'm just like, okay, I'm wondering if I can get this CD. I can't find it, whatever. She's like, okay, what's the name of the artist? And I'm just like, Clit Eater, and she just smiles and rolls with it. So anyway, what's the name of the album? Scream Bloody Clit. And it was, anyway, I thought it was hilarious. You can only imagine the kind of stuff that they probably have to deal with. But anyway, that like I'm eternally linked that memory to that record store and just the kind of stuff that they would indulge me with. So anyway.
John Constantine one-ups you with my favorite band, Asshole Fingerer. Oh, we're demonetized. It's all good. It's all good.
I waited till 3 hours in.
We're fine.
I mean? Okay.
So you said
she probably thought, "Oh, really? You are?"
Yes.
Yeah. Or you
so you said the guy of Inhume from. It's a French band, yeah.
They're a French band, yeah.
I think in Hume's the one I'm thinking of is like is Danish.
Belgium.
I want to say they're from the Netherlands, maybe. Hoest Silverens is the name of the guy who's.
Okay, so that's a different one. We've got a band called Inhume. They are from France, and their singer is always totally wasted.
Okay, well, I can imagine.
Yeah, Netherlands. You're right.
Yeah, I don't know if your band is named Clit Eater. I don't know if you're the most low key band in the world, but anyway.
All right. Okay, third show I ever saw, and I'm going to get off the show thing here, but shortly thereafter, Grand Rapids, there was a place called the Orbit Room on 28th Street. The hell is it called now? I don't even know if it's still there anymore, to be completely honest with you. I went and saw this band, Ministry. Mine's a Terrible Thing to Taste tour. Man, this was so. This band opened for them, came FDM, and we got there early. We got in pretty quick. All my friends were up on the cage. Ministry had like a chain link fence on the front of the stage. I couldn't get up any further because those assholes were taking up all the space. So the PA was right here, right by my head. I'm like, the house music's playing. I'm like, I'm good. I can handle this. This isn't so bad. KMFDM came out and the drum machine kicked off. My hair with the beat was going. I'm like, oh no, this is bad. It's real bad. I was right by. I couldn't get away from the place was packed. KMFDM. It's good. Good industrial stuff. From Germany, am I wrong? I'm correct there. They're from Germany, I believe. Mm-hmm. Ministry came out. Wow, what a show. Absolutely. I love this record. I really like Ministry up to this point. After this point, it's real hit or miss for me. But they had 3 or 4 guitar players, a couple samplers. They had Bill Rieflin and Martin Atkins on drums. Ogre was there working on the synths. He came out and did Smothered Hope. This was an amazing show. This one guy shaking his fist next to me. He climbed over my friend who was like elbowing him the whole time, like, get off me, get off me, get off me. He climbed up over him on the fence, crawled over to the center of the stage, looked out the crowd and went, yeah! And he hurled himself off backwards off the fence. No one caught him. You could feel his head hit the floor. I'm watching this guy. He's laying there. I thought he was dead. He was just laying there. I'm like, that dude's dead. And the couple girls that came with picked him up and they got him up and he was like, oh, I'm like, that's definite concussion. You could feel the head hit the concrete. It was crazy. But yeah, third show I ever went to, all basically in the same year. This was 1990 as well. Getting towards the winter, if I remember right. But man, what a show. I really enjoyed industrial music as well, so it was cool to see a metalized take on the genre for sure. But wow, this was another one of those wow moments. They were so good. Great lineup, great show. I'm gonna pivot into other things here now. Sorry. Jurgen, you're next.
I've got another show memory. I think I talked about that before, but for me, a very important album, Scumdogs of the Universe.
It's a great album. It's so good. And in fact, Elaine and Paul Barker, Jorgensen and Paul Barker mixed the song Horror of Yig on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And on our very first live show we ever did with a serious band, we covered the song "Sick of You."
Yep.
I still got that on VHS tape.
Yep.
I saw them live at that tour.
Nice.
And I met the guitar player and the singer of a version, which was a US
crossover, weren't they?
No, it's more like Metallica thrash.
Oh, really? Okay.
Their second album, the singer sounds a lot like James Hetfield.
Mm.
They gave me a pick, and they signed my ticket. And if you look closely, they were signing it while Gwar were playing.
Get a little slave semen on there.
All of a sudden, a fountain of blood came all over the ticket. So
perfect.
That is my memory for the show.
Perfect. Yep.
So to say, Gwar signed the ticket as well.
Nice.
In their own way.
I recently just told the story of me being like 3 feet away from Slimenstra Hyman's butt. It was great. A very awesome butt. Yeah. I'm not going to say it again. I've said it on here a lot because it's a butt that's kind of burned into my memory. There's a little blood on it, fake blood on it, but it was all good. I can work around that. Anyway.
Just let the blood dry in and then slap her a couple of times gently, yep. And the blood will fall off.
Flake off, yeah. True.
Yeah.
This show is really going places.
It's off the rails. Okay, Mr. Clit Eater. You're going to be the morality police now?
Hey, I'm contributing to it. I may have started it. I may be to blame.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Okay. Let's listen. I'll grab another classic record here that was really important to me.
Bathtub shitter. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. I do have. We can go back to that. I have more on that vein, but okay. Here we go. I mean, for me, this is my favorite. If I had to pick one death metal record, it's this one. And I would even go like, though so many of the records that were inspired by it. I pulled a collection here of like death metal records. Yeah, that one's gonna. I won't be able to escape this now for the rest of the evening. It's all just gonna be clitoris jokes. But this is the first and like a real find from my Kronos is a French band.
Mm-hmm.
Tech death that I don't think a lot of people know of. This is their first full length, Titan's Awakening. I just want to take a few moments to highlight a lot of the bands that from this kind of era that for me, like I have an entire series on my channel dedicated to it, but this is just a couple of records that I pulled to highlight. Man, here we go. I'm looking at the chat right now. I'm not going to be able. Here we go. So that's Kronos. Eternal Suffering is another one. U.S. band I wanted to highlight, but last one I will do in this vein. I'm guarantee you tomorrow I'm gonna have to talk to Corinne about this and be like, listen, something happened last night. Anyway, this is Poland Skeptic, Pathetic Being, another favorite in my stable there. But all these sort of like, I mean, this is one of those things for me that's also an era. Like this kind of late 90s, early 2000s death metal, absolutely classic. Okay, can we please now get the camera off of me?
You've embarrassed Kellen.
Oh my god. I guarantee you she's laughing right now.
Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Corinne rules. Yeah. He's all good. I guess I'm next. Okay, all of this crap is leading up to the point that big turn in what's going on with my life here. Going to these shows, starting to discover that there's an underground out there that I've been not a part of, and missed out on. And I think I ordered something from Century Media, and I got like this newsletter that was like a bunch of reviews on it, but there's like a logo for each band. I'm reading this thing. I'm like, I could do this. This guy isn't doing anything. So around 1995, me and about 3 other friends started Worm Gear Zine. This is the 3rd issue. I couldn't find the 1st issue. And the 2nd issue has got stuff on it that probably isn't good for, oh, look, me with hair back in the day before it all fell out. 3 of us, Scott, the guy I've been talking about a lot. Bob, I was in a death metal band with him called Prosthesis, and a hardcore band called Slaunchwise. We started doing this zine. It was a print Xerox type thing, and it really started. It was a big deal for us for the fact that, we're up in here in northern Michigan. We started putting out this zine. It started kind of getting around. People started talking about it, and all of a sudden it felt like we were reaching out to a bigger world. And it ended up, I could wrap this up in 2. Are you guys good with that? I mean, I could do this and then another one. Okay. It ended up, Jeff Wagner was a publicist for Relapse Records. He really liked the zine. He ended up leaving Relapse Records and going to work for this magazine. He was the assistant editor. Actually, this is my cover story. I did this interview with Abat from Immortal. He called me up one day and wanted me to write for Metal Maniacs. So this little nothing Xerox zine from Michigan that ended up at the end, when we ended, we were at 10,000 circulation. We were giving them away free at Milwaukee Metal Fest and all these other shows. Started writing for these guys. I also did some work for the Relapse guys on their Resound catalog. It was like a catalog that they turned into also like a zine. It was like the Relapse catalog, but they started interviewing their bands. I did an interview with John and Kyle from Incantation on this one. So my love of music took me down this path where I started doing this writing, and it took me places I never thought it would. It started getting me into shows. Here's some laminates of press passes and stuff for Metal Fest. One of Metal Mom's Fest downstate, a Milwaukee Fest, March Metal Meltdown. I think that was in Jersey. That was another Jack Koshik joint. Started getting me into shows. I would get in and have to write up a feature for Metal Maniacs. And the zine started taking off. Some of the first tapes I ever got for promos. This is one of them. This is a band called Enthroned. I interviewed them for the first issue. They were one of the first demos that came in. Back then you put out your feelers and the tapes started rolling in. It was weird. These guys aren't that great, but I was excited to get a demo in the mail. I interviewed them. And then it started with the bigger labels started liking it. Here's my first package from Earache was Fudge Tunnels, Complete Futility of Ignorance, and Extreme Noise Terror Retribution. Back when they were actually sending out cassettes for promos. I just get very nostalgic looking at this crap because, who am I? Just some dork up here, just sharing my thoughts and other people that are associated with the magazine and stuff. And I was looking through my stuff and this record came up. And this is when Century Media, this came out in 96? A year after we started getting promos from the bigger labels too. And this was the first Greek album and band. I always, for some reason, the Greek stuff never clicked with me. I never liked it. I didn't get it. This is the first album that clicked. And it's very 90s sounding. It's very Century Media sounding. This makes sense. They signed it, but this is another one of those bands that I never would have probably checked out if it wasn't for the magazine. And just being given the opportunity to hear all this music. And, we're starting to do reviews now on Heavy Metallurgy, and it's we're trying to get that feeling back. We got a cool core of people that are doing reviews for us. It's starting to feel like the little talk behind the lines, who's going to review what and all this stuff. Trying to get it back to where it feels like it did when, Worm Gear was a thing and Metal Maniacs was a thing. And is it the same? Probably not. And I know most of you that watch this show don't give a shit about the reviews, which is fine, but they're there for you. And it's just us trying to get back to this point in time and this feeling of excitement again. And it's different nowadays. All the promos are digital, which is fine, to be honest. Getting mailbox full of CDs, that was kind of stressful. You felt obligated to listen to that stuff. And it got to a point where you couldn't listen to that stuff. It was just too much. It all started to sound the same. You started hating certain stuff. But, yeah, I mean, the whole Worm Gear Metal Maniacs thing is a very nostalgic part of my life. And I look back at it as something that I did outside of my family, outside of my family's business. And something that was mine, something that was my own, that I started on doing myself. And this, though what we're doing here in Heavy Metallurgy is nothing new or unique, it feels like something that we've all mine or Alan's, or it feels like something kind of obtuse, something that isn't normal in this day and age. Although there's a lot of people that do it, but I'm trying to get back that nostalgic feeling of the old writing days. And again, this is a nostalgic show. I'm just sharing stories, but yeah, that's that. The whole writing part is a big part of my life, and it really gave me a lot of opportunities to hear a lot of killer music and meet, lifelong friends like Jeff Wagner, S. Craig Zoller, now Kellen, Jurgen, all these people you end up meeting doing these things. It's very rewarding, and it's worth doing. It's a lot of fun, and it makes this very sheltered, quiet part of the globe seem a little bit more colorful. It's very cool. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and I've got one more to go after this. So y'all want to do one more round? We can do that.
So thank
you for humoring me on that, everybody. Cheers.
I saw on the Worm Gear magazine, I saw the ancient logo. Ancient, the band from Norway.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any contact with them?
I interviewed him. I think it was me that interviewed him for this one. Yeah. I can't remember. I actually interviewed on the phone Dan Swano for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, we can talk about Dan Swano a little bit later on. So,
he's a great dude. Great, super nice guy.
Mm-hmm. He is, yeah. Ancient. We did a tour with Ancient in 2005, and by then, their main man lived in Italy, and he's got an Italian band. And the first night they went on stage, and he said, "We are Ancient from Norway." And after the show, we were, "You're not Ancient from Norway. You're Ancient from Italy."
Yeah, so, they relocated. Yeah.
So fuck your shit. On the second night, he went on stage. "We are Ancient from the land of the damned." So, okay. Talking about black metal, by the mid 90s, I already was a huge fan of German prog rock like Eloy or stuff you call krautrock. And all of a sudden, this little fucker showed up in the woods, Heart of the Ages.
Yep.
And it perfectly combined prog rock with black metal. They only did that one album that was really special. The demo that came before that is awesome as well. So back in the mid-90s, when we first got the CD version of that, we always drove into the woods with a lot of weed and played.
That was, I think the weed. I think I'm getting a theme here. I think the weed was your GPS back then. Am I wrong?
Maybe it still is.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a fantastic album. It starts off perfect and it ends perfect.
Is that an OG press? Wade is asking. He's never seen that cover before.
Oh no, this is Back on Black from... I can't read that, and I can't find my glasses.
Back on Black is probably a reissue. Yep.
Yeah, it's a reissue, yeah. I think first time on vinyl for that.
Well, that could be also an OG press then. Yep.
So the CD cover actually had only that one as a cover.
Yep.
Blown up, yeah. But In the Woods, Heart of the Ages, still to this day. Can you remember the high shriek when the metal starts on that record?
Yeah.
I had that as an alarm clock back then. Just that little shriek.
Right.
Yeah.
Another weird shrieky Norwegian band was Fluidity. There was the early vocals on that were a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yep.
But perfect combination of prog rock and black metal.
Right on. Kellen.
Oh, I'm out. I'm good.
You're out?
I'm good for tonight.
Are you sure? You don't want to have any other classics back there waiting in the wings?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
For tonight. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to end with this one, and it's funny because everybody's going to roll their eyes, but nostalgia does, like Jurgen said, nostalgia doesn't have to be old. We're always moving forward, always making new memories. And this year I was fortunate enough to be able to take my kid to his first concert at 13 years old. And it was to see this band for this album. I know everybody's like, oh God, I don't care. I really don't give a shit. It was really cool for, it was at the Royal Oak Music Theater. It was with Hammerfall and Halloween. And, it's making new memories, new nostalgia. I have a lot of nostalgia around this record already because I've listened to it so many times, but the fact that my kid likes it and the fact that this was his first concert was a pretty special moment. I got a little misty eyed actually when he was up there and seeing him headbang and raise his fist and raise the horns, and the stupid little pit broke out in front of him. He's like, Dad, what do we do? Do we leave? I'm like, no, you just stand and push the dummies back in. He's like, oh, okay. I pushed a couple guys in. I'm like, that's how you do it. They're not hurting each other. It's how they dance. He's like, oh, okay. So, I'm not a hunting, fishing, camping dad, but I'm a metal dad. So the fact that I got to take my kid to his first concert at 13 years old, pretty special. I'll never forget it. Hopefully he won't either, but we'll see.
You won't forget that.
He won't forget it, I don't think. No. He's already asking what his next concert's going to be. So, Jurgen, you got any more? We'll wrap it up with this one if you do. You can run through a couple of them if you want.
No, just one more. A very special record in my upbringing. Not upbringing.
That album rules. That album is almost better than Sisters of Mercy.
we talked about Dan Swanner, and this is one of his best recordings ever. I was already into Edge of Sanity, but when that one came out, this is a little bit more, what do you call it, dark wave or synth pop, or I don't know.
It's like Sisters of Mercy. It's just goth, drum machine goth. I don't know. It's good.
Yeah, and I remember with my...
the melodies on it are great. His singing is great. The songs are great. It's a great record.
Yeah.
It's the only one by him. I'm not a prog rock guy, and I know Nightingale got way proggier as they went, and I didn't care. I really like that record, though.
Yeah, we were with a girlfriend of mine. We were spending hours and hours sitting in the car just listening to that. And what did we do? Smoking weed.
Yep.
Perfect one. And on behalf of Dan Swanner,
how did he sign it?
I'm in contact with his wife Eva.
Yep. They live in Germany now, don't they?
Yeah, he lives in Germany. He actually lives about 5 kilometers away from Blind Guardian.
Maybe you should send him your early demo.
Yeah.
Maybe you can remix it, master it for the High Roller Records vinyl version.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I got Dan sign a couple of things for me.
Nice.
Through his wife. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. I interviewed him on the phone. I interviewed him, and I interviewed Thomas from At the Gates too, and another super nice dude. Those guys they're super nice guys. It's been cool talking to some of these dudes over the years, for sure.
You know why Dan Svanu is not playing live that much?
No.
He never did. They had a couple of small tours. The promoter always have to drag him on stage.
I got the impression he doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's got stage fright, and he's always shitting his pants and puking at the same time before shows.
Yeah.
So he really doesn't like that.
I used to have that too, but it went away. When I got older, I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Nothing's going to change the fact that I'm old and fat and I'm on stage. So this is going to be what it is. It is what it is, you know.
Stage fright has never been with me.
Oh, that's not true. I remember you telling me when you went on stage in front of 12,000 people, you were doing some puking before you went out.
Yeah, and I went out and saw the crowd and went back behind the curtain. And said, I'm not going to do that.
I got to go out there and do that. Yeah. Well, shit. It was a great time. It was a great walk down memory lane. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. And Alan in training. Nice job bringing the filth and disgust to the, slumming up the place a little bit.
We turned a little bit, Kellen after hours towards the end.
Kellen after dark. Kellen Max. It's not Skinamax. It's Kellen Max.
Well, I got a chance to share that story, so
it was great.
Yes.
So maybe Marty, Kellen, Alan, you should open up a porn business and call it Heavy Clitority.
Sex Condor. Yeah. Yep. Well, Jurgen, we really appreciate you joining us again. It's always a pleasure, my friend. Kellen, it's always a pleasure as well. A lot of fun, good times for sure. People in the chat that contributed, thank you so much. People in the chat that were in the chat and being yourselves, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate all of you and all the new subscribers. You all rule. Thank you so much. We will be back. I'm going to try to get a Primal Fear review up maybe this weekend. If not, it'll be up Monday. And then on Wednesday, what is Wednesday? I don't remember what was picked. Oh, I picked Cowweir. Yeah. Good record. And then next Friday, Ellen will be on. I don't know what he's got planned yet, but I'm sure it'll be awesome. The Sex Condor shirts are coming. The design is already done. It's already Lee has already done it. Yep.
I got a glimpse at it.
It's cool.
It is spectacular. Yeah.
It's killer. Yep. But anyway, cheers, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you next week.
A little show announcement in 2 weeks when Marty is back and Alan is back. We're going to do a re-ranking of the Saxon catalog.
I will not be here for that. That cannot ever happen again. There will be no reconsideration of my ranking. It's immortalized on the internet. You want to see it? Go see it.
Okay, Saxon has just died, so we're going to re-rank the Blue Oyster Cult catalog.
Not doing that either. Cheers, Motorhead. Motorhead's not happening either. None of these. Oh, my God. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you later. Have a great night. Oh, my God.